Hey, look over there. Isn't that Dr. Wang and his granddaughter? Who are those two youngsters following them? They must be really important people if they're getting treated by the divine doctor himself. When the other patients and even some workers in the hospital noticed Yu and Yuan following Dr. Wang, they immediately began gossiping with each other, as it was incredibly rare to see Dr. Wang working personally in the hospital. Ah, you must be new here. That's the Yu family. They're one of the largest donors for our hospital, and Dr. Wang is currently taking care of one of their children, who has this incurable illness. One of the more experienced workers there explained to the new nurse. Wait a second, did you just say the Yu family? That famous family with an immeasurable presence in the entertainment industry, especially the music industry? If I recall correctly, they have a genius musician in nearly every generation. That's right, they are the Yu family. Amazing! Then that beautiful young lady just now must be Yu, the genius pianist who placed third in the national piano competition at only 16 years old. I knew she looked familiar. She looks even prettier in person than she does on television. What about that young man in the wheelchair? I don't recognize him. Since you know Yu, you definitely know that young man. Although he looks completely different now due to the illness that devastated his body, he's Yuan, the child prodigy. Wait, that's Yuan, the legendary child prodigy who could play literally every instrument in the world before 10 years old with countless golden trophies under his belt? I wouldn't have known if you didn't tell me. Yes, it's truly a pity that he was struck with that illness, or he would have been the greatest musician in history. I haven't seen him ever since he disappeared from television, almost like he'd disappeared from the world. He was still playing the instruments perfectly while blind when I last saw him on television. I guess even the heavens envied him, so they decided to punish him. Jay, I would be willing to do anything if I can see him on the stage once again. Me too. While the nurses talked about the Yu family's legacy, Yuan and the others just reached their destination. Just put the young master on the X-ray table whenever you are ready, Dr. Wang said to Yu. Here, let me help you, Wang Xiaoying said to Yu. Thank you. Even though Yu could have done it by herself, she didn't stop Wang Xiaoying from helping. After all, as much as she hated other women getting close to her brother, she simply couldn't deny someone as cheerful and kind as Wang Xiaoying, who is one of the few people in this world that still respected her brother despite his tragedy. Once Yuan was on the table, Yu and Wang Xiaoying left the room and went to the other room, where they could watch Yuan from behind a glass window. I am going to start now, young master. Dr. Wang spoke into the microphone that broadcasted his voice into Yuan's room before typing a few things into the computer beside him. The X-ray machine suddenly activated, and Yuan was sent into this egg-shaped capsule for scanning. And since the scanning process required some time, Wang Xiaoying decided to play some music on her phone. When Yu heard the piano music that flowed flawlessly from her phone, she turned to look at Wang Xiaoying and asked, "Is that all you ever listen to?" "Pretty much," she nodded without hesitation. "Although I also listen to other music created by the young master, I like this masterpiece the most." Yu had nothing else to say, so she remained silent for the rest of the time, even enjoying the music that was being repeated in a loop by Wang Xiaoying, as it was music that was played by Yuan. Sometime later, Yuan was pulled out of the capsule, and while Dr. Wang read the results, Yu went to put Yuan back in the wheelchair. "How is my brother, Dr. Wang?" Yu asked after returning with Yuan. After a moment of silence, he said, "As I had already expected, there's nothing wrong with the young master's body, so you don't have to worry about the impurities." "I see, that's great." Yu sighed in relief after hearing the results. "However, that is not all I have to say," Dr. Wang suddenly continued, and he said, "According to the results, the young master's bones, they have gotten stronger, denser than before." "Huh? My bones have gotten denser?" Yuan spoke in a surprised voice. He wondered if this was also caused by the game Light's novel. "Yes. Although it's not that much denser than before, it's definitely improved enough to be noticed." Light's fell. "Well, it doesn't matter how much stronger my bones grow if I can't use them." Yuan laughed in a bitter voice. "Don't give up, young master. The heavens won't abandon a genius such as yourself if they favored you enough to give you such talents. I'm sure this is only temporary, and if my grandfather can't heal you, I'll definitely try to do something. Wang Xiaoying spoke with enthusiasm. Yeah, let's see how that works out for you when all you are doing nowadays is play video games. Dr. Wang shook his head. I can still study medicine as I play video games. In fact, I have learned a bunch about ancient medicine in the game that I am currently playing. Wang Xiaoying said to him, Ancient medicine? Are you also playing Cultivation Online? Yuan suddenly asked her. Wang Xiaoying turned to look at him with a surprised expression on her face. I am also playing the game with my sister right now, he said when he heard her surprised noise. Wait, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you can play the game, young master? Even in your condition? Wang Xiaoying said with a dazed look.
Yes.
Although I don't know how it works, I can play the game perfectly fine and I am even perfectly healthy while inside the game, so I can use my limbs and see with my eyes. Yuan said. Both Dr. Wang and Wang Xiaoying stared at him with gawking expressions on their faces. And now that you mention it, I recall seeing on the news that mentioned something like that, how even blind people can play the game and somehow use their sights in the game. Wang Xiaoying spoke in a dazed voice afterward. Wait a minute. Does this mean I can watch you play the instrument again inside the game? Let's play together, young master, Wang Xiaoying said to him in a cheerful voice. I will be participating in the Dragon Essence Temple's disciple examination in a few days.
If you want, we can meet there, Yuan said.
Oh, I am already a disciple of another sect, one that focuses on medicine and alchemy, Wang Xiaoying sighed. However, I'll definitely try to meet with you one day. What is your sect called? If I am ever around the place, I can try to find you, Yuan said. It's called Pill Academy, located in the Northern Continent, she said. Northern Continent? That's quite far away since I am in the Eastern Continent, Yuan said. Oh, then it might be a while before we can play with each other. Wang Xiaoying sighed in a regretful voice. However, Yu was trying her hardest to not smile at her misfortune.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If you'd like to request updates on any novel, consider becoming a Patreon or Ko-fi member. Based on your membership tier, I'll create additional parts for the novel you're interested in. Normally, I'll only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel due to limited time. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really helps.
Who knows what she might try to do to my brother when I am not there? She sighed inwardly. Anyway, is there anything else you need from us, Dr. Wang? Yu asked him a moment later, as she wanted to return to playing Cultivation Online with Yuan. No, I just wanted to see if there were any changes to the young master's body after that incident. Since we have done the X-ray and have the results, there is nothing else I need from you too. Then we'll go home now. Thank you again, Dr. Wang, for taking the time to do this. Yu said. Don't even mention it. Not only am I close with your parents, but I am also a fan of the young lady and the young master. Dr. Wang laughed out loud. I'll walk them outside, Wang Xiaoying said as she followed Yu and Yuan outside to their limousine. I'll see you later, young master. I hope we get to play with each other soon. Wang Xiaoying waved at them as they entered the car. Yes, I hope so too, Yuan said to her. Once the limousine drove off, Wang Xiaoying returned to Dr. Wang's side. It's been a long time since I last saw the young master, so energetic. We have never spoken to each other so much before. I bet it's all because of Cultivation Online, where he's able to live as a healthy young man again, Wang Xiaoying said to Dr. Wang. However, Dr. Wang didn't respond to her, and he was silently staring at Yuan's X-ray results. What's the matter, Grandpa? Is there something wrong with the results? Wang Xiaoying asked him after noticing this. No, it's just that the young master's situation is extremely weird, to the point where it's not an exaggeration to call it a phenomenon, Dr. Wang said in a profound voice, and he continued, Looks like I will have to dig up and read some more ancient medical records. Perhaps I'll learn something new there. Chapter 83. After returning to their home, Yu and Yuan quickly dived into the world of cultivation, known as Cultivation Online. Welcome back, Brother Yuan, Xiaohua said to him after sensing that his presence had returned to the world. Hello, Xiaohua. Yuan greeted her. What are we going to do today? Do you still want to continue practicing Wind Blade? Yuan asked Yuro afterward. Yes, but I don't want to slow down your progress with my boring training, she sighed. What are you saying? It's called training for a reason. If you don't train, you won't get better, Yuan said to her. Although it might be time-consuming, you'll have to do it eventually. I guess so. Ayuroi know that. And since they last logged off while they were still in the wilderness, they didn't need to do any traveling and were able to continue hunting monsters instantly. A few hours later. Congratulations, Yuro. You can finally slay the monsters without making a mess, Yuan said to her as he looked at the cleanly separated monster corpse with a smile on his face.
Yes.
And my mastery level for it increased by 1. Yuro said with an excited expression on her face. And now that I am pretty confident in my own control of the skill, we can do something harder. Of course, it probably won't be a challenge for you no matter what we do at my level, though. Something more difficult, huh? What do you have in mind? Yuan asked her. A dungeon, she quickly said. There are multiple strong monsters in dungeons, and if we can find one that has never been discovered before, there's a high chance we might obtain valuable treasures. A dungeon? Where do we find those? Yuan asked her. Well, there are many known dungeons around this place, but they have already been searched by the other players, so we won't find any treasures inside. Yuro said. What do you think, Xiaohua? Do you know of any dungeons around here? Something like the demonic spider's silent cave. Yuan decided to ask her, who seemingly knew everything. Demonic spider's silent cave. Do you mean beast nests? It's where wild beasts gather and make their home, and there are usually treasures inside because beasts instinctively pick up anything that is qi. Xiaohua asked him.
Yes.
That's exactly it. Do you know where we can find one? Yuro asked her. Xiaohua should be able to find some with her divine sense. Xiaohua then closed her eyes, and a profound feeling expanded from her small body a moment later, sweeping many miles in an instant.
Wow.
What a powerful divine sense. I wonder how it feels to see so many things and so far at once. It's probably like having eyes in the sky. Yuan watched with slight envy, wondering how long it'll take before he can start doing the same thing. If I can also divine sense in the real world, that would be great, too. Yuan sighed inwardly. About a minute later, Xiaohua opened her eyes again and said, There is a beast nest a few kilometers from here, and there are about 30 beasts inside between the 2nd level and 6th level Spirit Apprentice realm. 6th level Spirit Apprentice. Do you think you can handle those, brother? I will take care of the ones below the 4th level. Yuro asked him. Of course, Yuan nodded. As for Xiaohua, you can just stay behind us until we need you since it won't be challenging at all if someone is overpowered as you also fought the monsters alongside us. Yuro said to her. Well, although brother is also quite overpowered, at least he can't snap the monsters out of existence with his cultivation base. Yuro then added. Okay, Xiaohua nodded. She wouldn't do anything unless Yuan asked her to either way. Then let's go to this beast nest. Xiaohua then led them to the location. Many minutes later, once they reached the area, a notification popped up for both Yuan and Yuro. You have discovered Silver Ape Cave. Silver Ape Cave. I don't recall seeing this name on the forums, so we should be the first ones to have discovered this dungeon, Yuro said. That's good. Then let's clear this place up real quick. Lightsville Omicronem. However, before Yuan could even take a step towards the dark cave, Yuro grabbed his arm and said, Wait a second, brother. Have you forgotten? If we clear this dungeon together, our names will be announced to the entire world. Oh, right. That would be disastrous for us. I don't want you getting caught up in my mess, after all. Yuan nodded. If people see that player Yuan has a teammate, the other players would also begin looking out for Yuro to find him, something he did not wish to cede. Light's novel. Then what should we do? Yuan asked her. How about this? Brother will go inside first and clear out the stronger monsters and then come back outside. Then I will go inside and clean out the rest of the weaker monsters, Yuro suggested. That doesn't sound too bad, but I still don't want to leave you alone inside. Although they may be weak, accidents might happen, Yuan said to her, being extremely cautious when it came to Yuro's safety. Then why don't Xiaohua come with me? Since she's an NPC, She won't appear on the announcements, Yuan said after a moment of pondering. Oh, now that you mention it, that's true. Yuan nodded. Okay, let's do that. A few moments later, Yuan retrieved his starry abyss and went inside the dark cave. However, once he was inside, the entire place was well lit, almost like there were lamps inside. Once he reached the end of the cave, there was a spacious area that resembled the demonic spider's silent cave boss area. However, in the middle of this spacious area were a dozen apes with silver fur and a massive glowing tree. This tree nearly reached the ceiling of the cave, which was over 30 meters in height, and most of the silver apes were deep asleep around this gigantic tree, with a few of them playing on the thick tree branches. After taking a minute to analyze the situation and the silver apes, he counted 6 silver apes at the 6th level Spirit Apprentice and 8 of them at the 5th level. The rest of them were between the 2nd level and 4th level Spirit Apprentice realm. Once he found his targets, Yuan casually approached the glowing tree.
Huh. Huh. Huh.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh. When the silver apes playing on the tree noticed Yuan's presence, they began screaming to alert those that were asleep, immediately waking them up. Oh.
Ah.
Huh.
Huh. Ah.
Very quickly, 36 screaming silver apes surrounded Yuan, who stood there with a calm expression on his face, seemingly unfazed by the situation. A few moments later, some of the more powerful silver apes suddenly jumped at Yuan with their sharp claws spread wide open. Seeing this, Yuan skillfully maneuvered the black dagger in his hands. Thousand Knife Techniques. The black dagger flickered, and multiple black arcs of lights appeared around him. A second later, the silver apes that rushed at Yuan fell to the ground without any signs of life from their eyes or bodies. When the other silver apes saw this, they began panicking. However, they did not run away. After killing a few of the silver apes, Yuan began his own assault, specifically aiming for the silver apes with a higher cultivation base. A few minutes later, all of the silver apes above the 4th level Spirit Apprentice were slain, leaving only the weaker ones. After witnessing their strongest members being slain by Yuan without any efforts, the silver apes no longer dared to surround him and even began backing up to the massive tree. Yuan approached the tree, but he did not attack the silver apes, puzzling them. After looking around the tree and making sure there was nothing that Yuan couldn't handle, Yuan turned around and left the scene, dumbfounding the silver apes. "Brother, are you okay?" Yuan asked him after Yuan left the cave faster than she'd anticipated. "Yes, and I have dealt with all of the silver apes above the 4th level Spirit Apprentice realm. Though I do feel a bit sinful after storming in there and killing them when they were minding their own business." Yuan sighed. "You shouldn't feel pity for beasts, Brother Yuan. Although they may seem peaceful at glance, silver apes are vicious creatures that attack people in groups once they are hungry, and countless merchants and travelers have fallen to silver apes," Xiao Hua said to him. "Is that so?" Yuan nodded. "Anyway, it's my turn to have some fun," Yuan said as she retrieved her spirit weaver. "Be careful in there, Yuan. Although Xiao Hua is with you, don't get too ahead of yourself, as there are still over a dozen silver apes inside, and half of them are at the 3rd level and above," Yuan said to her. He then turned to look at Xiao Hua and said to her, "And Xiao Hua, make sure you protect my sister properly. Although she won't really die, it might affect her cultivation, and I cannot imagine seeing my sister's corpse even if it's just a game." "Don't worry, Brother Yuan. Xiao Hua will protect your sister at all costs." Xiao Hua nodded with a serious expression on her face. Yuan nodded, and Yuan entered the silver ape cave, with Xiao Hua by her side a moment later.
Wow.
"So these are silver apes? And what's the massive glowing tree in the middle?" Yuan mumbled in a low voice after seeing the silver apes. However, unlike previously, they were not sleeping around the tree. Instead, they were... Are they eating each other? Yuan covered her mouth in shock after realizing that the silver apes were consuming the silver apes that had been slain by Yuan. "That's their nature. They eat anything as long as they're hungry," Xiao Hua said. "As for the glowing tree, that's a spirit tree. It can grow spirit fruits that benefit one's cultivation base. However, it takes many decades to grow even one, and the silver apes has already eaten all of them. What a pity, Yuan sighed. Anyway, let's clear this beast's nest. Xiaohua, don't do anything yet. Although you may not be a player, you're still Brother Tian's servant, so your contribution might still be counted toward my brother's contribution, and his name will show up on the announcements. Xiaohua silently nodded at Yuan's words. Yuan locked her eyes on the large group of silver apes gathered in a circle while consuming the dead silver apes. After taking a deep breath, she swung the spirit weaver. Wind blade. An arc of powerful wind flew towards the silver apes horizontally, and before the silver apes could even react, the wind blade had sliced a dozen silver apes in halves.
Oh.
Oh. Alerted, the silver apes immediately dropped their food and rushed at Yuan. However, when they noticed the immense aura emitted by Xiaohua, they immediately stopped in their tracks and stood there as though they were stone statues. What the? Although Yuan was dumbfounded by the situation, she didn't dare to stop and continued to throw wind blades at the silver apes.
Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
The silver apes dropped one at a time right in front of each other, yet none of them dared to move, almost as though they were rooted from fear. A few minutes later, all of the silver apes were slain by Yuan, and an announcement appeared for the world to see. Congratulations! Player Yuan has become the first player to have cleared Silver Ape Cave. When Yuan saw the announcement in the sky, a relieved smile appeared on his face. Once Yuan came back outside, Yuan praised her. Wow, that was faster than I'd anticipated. Good job, Yuan. However, Yuan did not celebrate and merely sighed in a dejected voice. Something was wrong with those silver apes. It seemed like they were going to attack me at first, but they suddenly stopped moving and allowed me to kill them without any effort. It was ridiculous and not fun at all. Yuan was speechless and did not know how to respond to her complaints, as he only cared about whether she was hurt or not. Anyway, you managed to clear the dungeon and received an announcement. This makes you an ancestor, right? Yuan asked her. While that is the case, since it's only a dungeon clear, my title isn't worth as much as your skill and servant category first. Yuan said. Then, do you want to look for a few more dungeons to clear? Yuan asked her a moment later. No, it's fine. Then what would you like to do now? I would like to go on an epic journey that might take days, even weeks to complete, but I don't have the time for that now, so I want to spend my remaining time looking for a servant.
Yuan said.
A servant, huh? What do you think, Xiaohua? Anyway, we can help my sister tame a beast. Yuan asked her. Xiaohua nodded and said, It's very easy to tame beasts. You just need to feed it some food, and if it likes you, you can try to tame it. Huh? It's that easy. Yuan looked at her with wide eyes. Xiaohua nodded again and said, There are also techniques that allow you to tame and control beasts. Light spell. Let's try the feeding method first. What kind of food should we be feeding them? Yuan asked. It depends on what kind of beast you're trying to tame, but most of them like food that contains spiritual energy, especially spirit fruits. You're almost guaranteed to tame most beasts with a spirit fruit, Xiaohua said. Spirit fruits, huh? It's such a pity that the silver apes had taken all of them. Yuan sighed. You can buy spirit fruits in the market. They are worth about 500,000 gold coins each. Light's novel. 500,000 gold coins. Yuan exclaimed. That's a lot of money, but you can afford them without much trouble, right, brother? Yuan immediately began sweating after hearing her words, and he said a moment later, I only have around 200,000 gold coins left. Huh? How's that possible? You're still number 1 on the wealth leaderboards. Surely, you have much more than 200,000 gold coins. Yuan said. Well, most of that wealth is actually in Xiaohua's possession, Yuan said. Yuan then looked at Xiaohua and said, But that wealth is still brother's, right? Xiaohua nodded and said, Xiaohua is only holding it for brother Yuan. Then what's the problem? Yuan continued to ask. I didn't want to rely too much on Xiaohua and wanted to earn my own money, so I would rather not use the money we'd earned from selling her treasure unless it's an emergency. Yuan explained to her. Oh, I see. Then I'll ask her. Yu said, and she continued. Xiao Hua, can I borrow 500,000 gold coins from you? I'll pay you back in the future. I also can't keep on relying on my brother forever. Xiao Hua nodded her small head and retrieved 500,000 gold coins before handing it to Yu without blinking an eye. In the eyes of a cultivator at her level, 500,000 gold coins is a neglectable amount of wealth. Are you sure, Yu? It's only 500,000 gold coins. You don't have to pay us back. Yuan said to her. I borrowed it from Xiao Hua, not you, brother, and I am not shameless enough to accept money without paying it back. And like I'd said, I don't want to be too reliant on you. If you can't accept that money from Xiao Hua, then you should know how I feel. Hearing her words, Yuan nodded. Anyway, where can we buy a spirit fruit? Yu asked. Spirit fruits are pretty rare, so only luxurious stores would have them, Xiao Hua said, and she continued. There's a very popular place in Phoenix City named Golden Phoenix Bazaar, and you can find most rare and valuable treasures there. Great. Where is this place? Yu asked. Approximately 5,000 miles away. If we leave now, we should arrive there by tomorrow morning, Xiao Hua said. Tomorrow morning, huh? What do you think, Yu? It won't be my first time playing throughout the whole night, Yuan said to her. Let's do it. Since I only have one more day before I have to return to school, I would like to play with you for as long as possible. Yu nodded. After retrieving his flying sword, Yuan picked up Yu and jumped onto the sword before Xiao Hua flew towards the sky with them. Although it's going to take some time, I cannot wait to be able to use the flying sword by myself, Yu said. Me too. Yuan nodded. After flying for some time, they descended to take a quick break. After flying for a few more hours, the siblings logged off temporarily for dinner. Once they logged back into the game, they returned to their journey, and Yu would fall asleep in Yuan's arms shortly later. Many hours later, by the time Yu woke up, they had already traveled over 5,000 miles. Good morning, Yu. We should be there within an hour, Yuan said to her. Brother? Oh no. I accidentally fell asleep since flying felt so good, Yu exclaimed. I'm sorry, brother. Why are you apologizing? Yuan shook his head. Even though you are doing this for me, I fell asleep and left you alone. She sighed. It's fine. Anyway, look over there. I can see a phoenix. Yuan suddenly said to her. What? A phoenix? Yu immediately turned to look at where he was looking to see a large bird in the sky. However, once they got closer to it, they realized that the phoenix was actually an enormous phoenix kite that was being flown from the city. A kite? Yu mumbled in a low and surprised voice, as this is her first time seeing such a massive kite. Rumors have it there is a living phoenix currently living in the city, and that kite is used to honor the phoenix, Xiao Hua said. Wait a second, a real phoenix living in the city? Surely, that must be fake, right? After all, who would be able to miss the majesty sight of a phoenix? Yu said. Magic beasts like phoenixes are considered as divine beasts, and they have the capability to take on a human form once they reach a certain cultivation base, so it's not impossible that a phoenix could be living in the city disguised as a human, Xiao Hua explained. If there's really a phoenix, I'd like to meet one. Yu sighed as they descended a few miles from the city. You have discovered Phoenix City. When Yuan and the others approached the city, they immediately noticed the massive line stretching for at least a mile long from the city entrance. What in heaven's name? Why is the queue so long? Yuan stared at the line with wide eyes. It's only natural this place is so busy. Phoenix City is one of the most popular areas within the Eastern continent due to its rich environment and abundance of treasures, so powerful cultivators and rich merchants from all over the world come here to do business, Xiao Hua explained to him. Anyway, let's get in line first. Over a dozen people had entered the line by the time you finished speaking, Yuan said as he walked to the back of the line. After standing in line for half an hour, it was finally their turn to enter the city. Place your hands on this ball, said one of the guards once Yuan approached them. Yuan placed his hands on the crystal ball, and once the guards confirmed that he was not a criminal, they said, entrance fee for Phoenix City is 1 gold coin. The 3 of us are together, Yuan said as he handed them 3 pieces of gold coins. Here are your guest permits. Due to the immense population and not wanting to overpopulate the city, you are only allowed to stay in Phoenix City for 3 days. If you are caught past your date, you'll be fined 100,000 gold coins. If you wish to stay longer, you must visit the administration hall, and you can extend your time for a price. I understand. Yuan had to agree to such rules before they were finally allowed inside. Wow. This place is far more popular than I'd thought if they need to make such rules fearing for overpopulation, Yuan said once they were inside. Most popular cities that focus on business are like this, Xiaohua said. Well, 3 days is more than enough, as we'll be leaving immediately after we obtain a spirit fruit. Anyway, where do we go now? Yuan asked her. However, Xiaohua shook her head and said, Xiaohua has never been here before. She has only heard of the Golden Phoenix Bazaar being here. Then I guess we'll have to ask around, Yuan said. After spending a few minutes speaking to the pedestrians, Yuan got a good idea of the direction and began making his way towards the Golden Phoenix Bazaar with the other 2 girls. This place is really meant for business only. No matter where we go, the streets are filled with nothing but shops. Yuro said as they walked, enjoying the scenery. Do people even live in the city? Because I haven't seen any houses yet. Only the wealthiest of people would live in a place like Phoenix City, and they're all within the center of the city. Do you see those tall buildings in the distance? They are houses. Xiaohua said as she pointed in that direction. What? Those pagodas are actually homes. That's like living in Cultivator's Haven, which has 21 floors. Yuro exclaimed. After walking for many minutes, they reached this extremely wide street with a beautiful Golden Phoenix Bazaar, kite flying in the sky. Wow, so this is the Golden Phoenix Bazaar. But why does it appear so empty compared to the other streets? Yuan raised his eyebrows. Xiaohua shrugged. I guess it doesn't really matter why there are so few people here. Anyway, we should just look at every store until we find one that's selling spirit fruits, right? Yuan said. They nodded. However, right as Yuan prepared to enter the street, they were immediately stopped by the guards standing not too far away. Wait a second. Do you have permission to enter this area? The guards asked them. Permission? We need permission to enter the Golden Phoenix Bazaar? Yuan asked them with a surprised look, as this is his first time hearing this. Naturally. The Golden Phoenix Bazaar is not your ordinary place where one can enter normally, and only those with a permit are allowed to do business here. Then where do we get a permit? I'd like to buy something in there. Yuan asked them. This must be your first time here. Even getting the permit to enter this place is not that simple. First and foremost, you must donate a generous amount of money to the city lord before you can even be considered for the permit. The guard said to him. Money? Yuan immediately began sweating. How much are we talking about? Most people donate at least 10 million gold coins, said the guard. 10 million gold coins? Yuan's jaw dropped to the ground. If one must pay 10 million to use the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, they might as well go somewhere else. At least they would still have 10 million gold coins to spend by doing so. Lightsenville. What's so special about the Golden Phoenix Bazaar anyway? Requiring 10 million coins for a permit to shop at a place is simply outrageous, if you ask me. Nobody in their right mind would pay so much money for that. Yuro shook her head, unable to comprehend the reason behind this system. That's where you're wrong, young lady. Although it may be expensive, it is very well worth it, as the people you can find in this place are mostly renowned experts with immense backing or status in this world, and most people come here mainly to make connections with these individuals. Shopping is only secondary. The guard explained to them the true purpose of the Golden Phoenix Bazaar. I see. That makes more sense. Yuro nodded. Light's novel. What about the spirit fruit? Since we cannot enter this place without spending an extra 10 million gold coins, we'll have to look elsewhere for them. Yuan sighed. Spirit fruits? If you are looking for spirit fruits, then you can only find them inside the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, one of the guards said after hearing Yuan's words. How convenient. Yuan sighed again. If you really want to enter the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, there are methods that don't require payments or permits, though. One of the guards suddenly said. What are those methods? Yuan immediately asked. It's quite simple, actually. The guards exchanged glances with each other before speaking. You just need a recommendation from a Spirit Grandmaster Cultivator. If you reach the Spirit Grandmaster realm, you'll be allowed to enter the Golden Phoenix Bazaar without any limitations. Ha ha ha. The guards burst out laughing afterward, thinking that it was more realistic to pay 10 million gold coins than to find someone at the Spirit Grandmaster realm. Spirit Grandmaster? Why didn't you say so? We have one right here, Yuan said with a relieved smile on his face. What did you just say? That there's a Spirit Grandmaster amongst you? Who? You? Ha ha ha. The guards didn't take Yuan seriously and began laughing even louder. Well, she's not exactly a Spirit Grandmaster, she's a Spirit King, Yuan said as he pointed at Xiaohua. Spirit King. Ha 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 ha. The guards laughed so hard after hearing his words that they'd begun rolling on the floor, dying from laughter. Yuan looked at the guards with a dumbfounded expression on his face. Why are they laughing so hard? What's so funny? If this little girl is a cultivator with a Spirit Grandmaster cultivation base, much less Spirit King, I will run an entire lap around the Golden Phoenix Bazaar while naked.
One of the guards suddenly said.
Only the Golden Phoenix Bazaar? I am willing to run around the entire city naked, if she's really a Spirit King. Ha ha ha. Yu and Yuan looked at each other with raised eyebrows. What are you two laughing at while on duty? I have been in a bad mood lately, so I can use a few laughs. Go ahead. Tell me what's so funny. A clear but irritated feminine voice suddenly resounded, and when the guards heard this female's voice, they immediately stopped laughing and turned around with fearful expressions on her faces, looking as though they were staring at death. Yuan and Yu also turned to look at the person who'd just spoken, and a very beautiful woman in her late 20s wearing red robes with a golden phoenix pattern could be seen walking in their direction. And Madame Foam. The guards immediately kowtowed on the ground with their backs soaked in cold sweats. We were wrong for laughing while on duty. Please have mercy. However, the woman being addressed as Madame Foam coldly snorted. Did you not hear me? I want to know what's so funny that it made you laugh like maniacs. Well, it's like this. The guards proceeded to explain the situation to Madame Foam. A few moments later, Madame Foam turned her focus from the guards to Yuan and the two girls beside him. So, you think it's funny to joke about being a Spirit King, huh? Madame Foam narrowed her eyes at them, and suddenly,
boom.
The cultivation base of a Spirit Grandmaster suddenly erupted from Madame Feng's body, filling the area with a suffocating pressure, causing Yuan and Yu to begin choking, as though they were having trouble breathing. Do you still think it's funny too? However, before Madame Foam could even finish her sentence, Xiaohua shouted in a cute but angry voice, "How dare you hurt Brother Yuan?"
Boom.
An immense pressure that far exceeded Madame Feng's pressure suddenly appeared to cancel out Madame Feng's pressure, before forcing Madame Foam onto her knees. This is. Madame Foam lifted her head with much effort to look at Xiaohua, her gaze filled with shock and fear. A Spirit King. A real Spirit King. She's a real Spirit King. But how is that possible? How can a Spirit King possibly remain in the lower heavens? Madame Foam cried inwardly after realizing her mistake that could potentially end her life. Please have mercy, Senior Spirit King. This junior had eyes, but still failed to recognize your mighty presence. Madame Foam then kowtowed on the floor, with her smooth forehead kissing the solid floor. However, Xiaohua did not budge and continued to release her spiritual energy. What's going on here? Which expert is emitting this powerful presence? This expert definitely surpasses the Spirit Grandmaster realm. The Spirit Lord realm?
No.
It's even higher. This presence belongs to a Spirit King. The other experts located within the Golden Phoenix Bazaar were greatly shocked when they sensed Xiaohua's immense presence that appeared out of thin air. However, they were too scared to even peek their heads out the windows to see the situation, much less show themselves, and unless directly told to, they would rather not stick their noses where it doesn't belong, especially when a Spirit King was involved. After all, a single mistake could mean the end of their business, and even their life. That's how much power a Spirit King holds in this lower heavens where the peak experts are only at the Spirit Grandmaster realm. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, Madame Feng remained kowtowing on the floor, not even daring to lift her head. Xiaohua, it's okay now. We're not hurt, Yuan said to her a moment later. Xiaohua nodded her head and immediately retrieved her powerful aura, allowing Madame Feng to breathe again. Are you okay? Yuan approached Madame Feng before extending his hand out to her. Thank you. Fearing that Xiaohua might get angry at her again if she doesn't accept his hands, Madame Feng grabbed Yuan's hands and allowed him to pull her to her feet. Anyway, I will apologize again for getting ahead of myself and causing trouble for you, and I never intended on harming you. Madame Feng lowered her head and bowed to them in an apologetic manner after she was standing again. It was only a misunderstanding. You don't have to take it to the heart, Yuan said with a calm smile on his face. Anyway, since you have confirmed that Xiaohua is indeed at the Spirit King level, we should be able to shop in the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, right? Yuan then asked her. Why, yes. Madame Feng quickly nodded her head. Nobody would dare to stop them even if they wanted to live in the Golden Phoenix Bazaar. And she continued, if you don't mind, I can help you with whatever you're looking for. I am the owner of the Phoenix Heaven in the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, one of the most renowned stores in the city. No matter what kind of treasure you're looking for, we will have it. If we don't, we'll know where you can find it. That'd be great, Yuan said, and he continued. We're looking to buy a spirit fruit. Spirit fruit? Madame Feng looked at him with a dazed face, seemingly speechless. Yuan immediately began feeling nervous after seeing Madame Feng's reaction, worried that it might not be available because of its rarity. However, Madame Feng was thinking the complete opposite, as spirit fruits are pretty worthless in the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, where the treasures are usually worth 100 times more than spirit fruits. If it's only spirit fruits, I can offer some to you for free, Madame Feng said to him a moment later. Really? Isn't it very expensive, though? Yuan looked at her with wide eyes. Yes, it's my way of saying sorry for the trouble I've caused you three today, Madame Feng said. And if I have to be honest, spirit fruits aren't that valuable in my eyes, as my shop sells things that are worth way more. Since you don't mind, I won't be humble. Yuan nodded his head. Please follow me, Madame Feng said as she turned around and began walking away. Isn't this great, Yuro? We don't have to spend any money on the spirit fruit now, Yuan said to her as they followed Madame Feng. She nodded. A few minutes later, they entered this luxurious building that was somewhere in the middle of the Golden Phoenix Bazaar. Welcome back, Madame Feng. Welcome to the Phoenix Heaven, esteemed guests. The workers inside greeted them the moment they entered the building. Madame Feng nodded her head before speaking to one of the workers there. Bring me 3 spirit fruits and wrap them up nicely. It's for these esteemed guests. As you wish, Madame Feng. The worker bowed before walking away. 3 spirit fruit? We only planned on buying 1, Yuan said to her afterward. Don't worry about it, 1 or 3. It doesn't make a difference to me, Madame Feng said to him with a smile, and then she suggested, anyway, it might take some time for them to wrap up the spirit fruits. Why don't I show you around the store while we are waiting? Lights fell. Hearing her words, Yuan nodded, and they proceeded to follow Madame Feng around the first floor of the building. Lights novel. How much are the treasures here usually worth? I don't see any price tags. Yuan suddenly asked her out of curiosity. The first floor mostly contains treasures worth between 10 million gold coins and 100 million gold coins. Madame Feng quickly responded to him. 100 million gold coins. Yuan looked at her with a dazed face. There appeared to be around 6 floors in this building, and if the first floor already contained treasures that are worth tens of millions of gold coins, then he cannot imagine what kind of treasure they have on the top floors. What is this? Yuan suddenly stopped in front of a display case that had a single red leaf inside, wondering how this is even a treasure. That's a blood leaf from the Devil's Forest. It's a rare treasure that requires 500 years to naturally grow, Madame Feng explained to him. It's usually used in strengthening pills. Is that so? Yuan mumbled in a low voice. A few minutes later, they finished seeing all of the treasures on the first floor. Do you wish to see the other floors? Madame Feng asked him afterward after noticing how much they were enjoying the tour, especially Yuan, whose eyes were essentially glowing with excitement. If you don't mind, Yuan said. Huh? Why would I? Madame Fong laughed in a slightly awkward voice. While she normally wouldn't allow strangers to the higher floors, there was simply nothing she could do when there was a spirit king amongst them. Even if Yuan wanted to rob the entire building, Madame Fong could only stand there with a smile on her face while they robbed the store. However, since Yuan did not appear to be that kind of person, even feeling kind of pleasant to be around, Madame Fong wasn't too worried about showing them the treasures, or else she wouldn't even have suggested it in the first place. Madame Fong brought Yuan and the others to the second floor a few moments later, but there appeared to be fewer display cases on the second floor compared to the first floor. How much are the treasures on this floor? Yuan couldn't help but ask. Around 100 million gold coins to 200 million, she said with a smile. 200 million. Yuan could feel himself sweating just from hearing the enormous amount of wealth. Madame Fong then continued, the treasures on the third and fourth floor are worth around 200 million to 700 million. On the fifth floor, the treasures are all worth over 1 billion gold coins, but since the amount is so high, we normally accept only spirit crystal from that point forth. As for the sixth floor, most of the treasures there are priceless, so we only accept trades with a similar value for it. After seeing every treasure on the second floor, they continued on to the third floor. This is a divine grade sword? Yuan gazed at the beautiful and sharp sword in the display case with admiration in his eyes. That sword is called Thousand Lords, and although it is only of low quality, it is immensely powerful, to the point where even a mortal would be able to cleave an entire mountain in half if they could wield it. Xiao Hua, at what cultivation level do I need to be in order to wield something like this? Yuan decided to ask her. Brother Yuan should be able to wield earth-grade treasures now, perhaps even low-quality heaven-grade treasures. However, you'll need to reach Spirit Grandmaster before you can even consider wielding a divine-grade treasure. Spirit Grandmaster. That's quite far away, Yuan sighed. After spending a few minutes on the third floor, right as they prepared to head on to the fourth floor, one of the workers there approached them with 3 luxurious-looking square boxes. Madame Fong, here are the spirit fruits you have requested. Madame Fong accepted the spirit fruits before handing them to Yuan. Here you go, esteemed guests. It's not much, but please accept this small token from me. Thank you. Yuan accepted the boxes with a humble expression on his face. Although you now have what you came for, do you still wish to see the other floors? I can see that you have a fascination for swords. Since that's the case, you'll definitely love what I have on the top floor. Madame Fong said to him afterward. While she could just let Yuan leave now, she didn't want them to leave before she could create some sort of connection with them, especially with Xiao Hua, a spirit king. Okay. Yuan immediately nodded, as he was also curious about the treasures on the higher floors. After putting away the spirit fruits into a spatial ring, Yuan and the others followed Madame Fong to the fourth floor, where even fewer display cases were available. What kind of pill is this? Yuro suddenly asked after seeing the reddish pill in the display case, as she cannot imagine how a single pill could possibly cost hundreds of millions of gold coins. That's the Spirit Advancement Pill. It can boost the cultivation base of any cultivator before the Spirit Master Realm by an entire realm, so 9 levels. Madame Fong explained to her. An entire realm? So I can reach the Spirit Warrior realm right now if I swallowed it. Yuro asked, her voice filled with shock. Correct. However, you can only consume one of these in your lifetime, so most people would consume it at the first level Spirit Warrior realm, so they can become a Spirit Master instantly.
Wow.
How much would one of these cost? Yuan asked afterward. 650 million gold coins. Madame Fong responded with a smile on her face. 650 million? Yuan's jaw dropped. It didn't take him much effort or money to reach the 5th level Spirit Warrior realm, so the ridiculous price seemed unjustified in his eyes. However, to the majority of cultivators in this world that require months and even years of effort for a single breakthrough, if they could potentially save many years of their life with a single pill, the Spirit Advancement Pill was worth every penny if they could afford it. After walking a circle around the 4th floor, Madame Fong brought them onto the 5th floor, where only 7 items were being sold. Everything in here is worth over 1 billion gold coins. I wonder what you can do with that amount of money in this world. Yuan mumbled. Although 1 billion gold coins may seem like a lot, it's actually not as much as you are thinking. An average sect will earn and spend tens of millions of gold coins a month, whilst the bigger ones spend hundreds of millions of gold coins every month. Madame Feng said. But that's for an entire sect with thousands of people, right? I cannot imagine someone spending so much money on a single individual. Yuan shook her head. If you're talented enough, people will be willing to spend as much resource as needed. You will be surprised by how much resources wealthy families spend on their most talented children. Madame Feng said with a smile on her face. Let's take this golden spirit silk for example. This golden spirit silk is a very important ingredient for an extremely rare and powerful pill that will permanently increase an individual's cultivation speed. If you have a very talented individual in your family and enough money, would you be willing to spend it on this person, who will surely become a great figure in the future and earn much more than what you'd spent? There's really not much difference between investing in business hoping for a good return and investing in an individual hoping to maximize their growth. Investing into a person's future, huh? Yuan turned to look at Yuan, who is considered to be one of the most talented child prodigies in history, and how much their family had invested into him before he became a cripple. Do you know of a herb called the 7-colored herb? How much do you think one of those would cost? Yuan suddenly asked her, who appeared very experienced in prices for treasures. The 7-colored herb? Now that's a treasure everyone with a store in the Golden Phoenix Bazaar would covet even though they probably won't try to sell it. If I had one right now, it would be placed on the 6th floor, as they are extremely rare and priceless. Priceless, huh? Yuan nodded. Seeing his reaction, Madame Feng narrowed her eyes at him, wondering if he had in his possession a 7-colored herb. Anyway, let's continue the tour. Madame Feng said a moment later, and they returned to looking at the display cases, whilst Madame Feng explained to them the history and value for each of these treasures that are worth over 1 billion gold coins. Sometime later, Madame Feng brought Yuan and the others onto the top floor in the building. There are only 3 items on this floor? Yuan mumbled after seeing 3 thick display cases perfectly distanced from each other. However, unlike the previous transparent display cases, these display cases were completely black, resembling glasses that were tinted to the extreme. These display cases are protected by a powerful formation that can block even attacks from a spirit grandmaster such as myself, Madame Feng said to them. Then she snapped her fingers, and one of the display cases suddenly became transparent again, allowing them to see the item inside. Is that a heart? Yuan asked in a baffled voice after seeing the red pulsing object that resembled a beating heart. It's still beating, too, Yuan exclaimed. Although it looks like this and closely resembles a heart, it is actually a monster core that once belonged to an extremely fearsome magical beast at the Spirit Grandmaster realm, Madame Feng said. A monster core? This beating thing. Yuan's jaw dropped, as this is his first time seeing such a unique-looking monster core. Although he can eat normal monster cores without batting an eye, he will definitely have trouble putting something this disgusting into his mouth. The Spirit Grandmaster demonic beast was a special existence that had demonic blood flowing in its veins, hence why its monster core looks this way. Madame Feng said. Demons? How do they differ from magical beasts? Yuan asked. Demons are extremely powerful and fearsome monsters that resemble humans but are neither human nor beasts. They are bloodthirsty entities with unknown origins, so we do not know how they came into existence. However, we do know that they are extremely powerful and feared by most people, she explained. I see. Yuan nodded. Well, you won't find any demons in the lower heavens though, as they are usually too powerful to exist here. Madame Feng said a moment later. Lightsville. Let's move on to the next item. I have a feeling that you'll really like it. After snapping her fingers, the second display case revealed itself. This is the sword? Yuan looked at the beautiful yet fierce-looking sword in the long display case with admiration, and his hands quickly became itchy, as he had this strong urge to hold the sword. This is not your ordinary treasure, it's a soul weapon, Madame Feng said with a smile on her face. And it's called the Empyrean Overlord. A soul weapon? Yuan became even more interested after hearing that. Don't you also have a soul weapon, brother? Yuro suddenly recalled. Madame Feng looked at Yuan with wide eyes filled with surprise. Why, you also have a soul weapon? If you don't mind, can I see it? She asked him a moment later in a trembling voice.
Sure.
Yuan nodded and retrieved the starry abyss the next second. Amazing! This is my first time encountering another individual with a soul weapon, Madame Feng exclaimed, and she continued, If you don't mind me asking, where did you obtain this beauty? It was given to me by some people I helped, he said in a calm voice. It was given to you? Madame Feng mumbled in a trembling voice with a dazed expression on her beautiful face, wondering what kind of person would give away a soul weapon just because they had been helped by him. What about you? Where did you obtain this sword? Yuan then asked her. I found this baby inside the legacy tomb of some powerful cultivator 500 years ago, Madame Feng said with a nostalgic feeling around her. Legacy tomb? What's that? Yuan tilted his head. They are essentially a cultivator's graveyard, Brother Yuan. When a powerful cultivator is near death, but they want to pass down their legacy, they will create these areas to challenge those who wish to attain their legacy, and whoever passes the challenges will obtain all of that cultivator's wealth, Xiao Hua explained to him. I'm more interested in how long ago you found it. 500 years? Do cultivators really live that long? Yuro said to Madame Feng with a dazed look on her face, as she cannot even imagine living past 150, much less 500. Yes, most cultivators at the Spirit Grandmaster Realm can live up to 1,000 years, Madame Feng said to her. 1,000 years? Then what about a Spirit King? Yuro asked, as she turned to look at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's eyebrows immediately twitched, as she understood Yuro's intent on asking such a question. I'm not really sure, but they should have a longevity of at least 10,000 years. Madame Feng answered with an innocent face. 10,000 years? Yuro's jaw dropped, and her curiosity regarding Xiao Hua's age intensified. Anyway, even though I managed to obtain this soul weapon, I cannot use it, as it won't recognize me as its owner no matter what I did.
Madame Feng sighed afterward.
It won't recognize you? Yuan mumbled with a profound expression on his face. When Xiao Hua saw this, she turned to look at Madame Feng before asking her, Since the soul weapon is on display in this store, you are willing to sell it, right? Hearing her question, Madame Feng immediately nodded. That's correct. Though, I am mostly looking to trade it for something of similar value, if you don't mind. Madame Feng spoke in a reserved voice, as her fear for Xiao Hua still lingered within her heart. Meanwhile, Yuan stared at Xiao Hua, whose intentions were clear as day, with a surprised face, clearly speechless. Xiao Hua, don't tell me you're going to... Yuan looked at her with his eyes wide open. Xiao Hua nodded and said, Brother Yuan looked like he wanted to hold the sword, and Xiao Hua believes that she should invest in Brother Yuan's future, as there's no doubt that he'll become a great figure in the future. While it's true that I wanted to try holding the sword, it is an exaggeration to say that I want it, Yuan said with a perplexed expression on his face. However, Yuro said with a smile on her face, There's no need to be humble, brother. You may be able to fool others, but you cannot fool me. I know you want that sword, and as Xiao Hua said, you are worth the investment. Yuro, Yuan shook his head at his little sister who'd betrayed him. The only reason why he refused the soul weapon was because he feared the enormous price that Xiao Hua might have to pay in order to obtain it for him. Anyway, what do you want in exchange for the soul weapon? Are you looking for something in particular? Xiao Hua returned to Madame Feng. Honestly, I have been hoping to exchange the Empyrean Overlord for another soul weapon, one that I can use. However, I have had the Empyrean Overlord for over 500 years now, and there have been countless individuals interested in it, but alas, I have not met another individual with a soul weapon until today, and I doubt you would be willing to part with your current soul weapon.
Madame Feng sighed.
Weapons, huh? Although Xiao Hua does not have any soul weapon, she has plenty of treasures. Xiao Hua then opened her spatial ring and began pulling out weapons one after another until the floor was littered with at least a dozen weapons, each emitting its own powerful aura. Not just Madame Feng, but even Yuro and Yuan were staring at Xiao Hua with gawking expressions on their faces. Just how many treasures does she have? These are all. Madame Feng's body trembled in excitement after feeling the auras coming from these treasures. They are all peak-quality, divine-grade treasures. Pick as many as you want for the soul weapon, Xiaohua said with a calm expression on her face. Since she'd already planned on giving these weapons to Yuan in the future, it would make a difference if she traded them for another weapon that he'll be using. Divine-grade treasures. Yu Ro's mouth salivated from the sight of so many endgame treasures. A single one of these treasures would shake the entire world and its entire player base, yet there were over a dozen of them laying before her on the floor. If she'd posted this on the forums online, nobody would believe her even if they were beaten to death. After a long moment of silence, Xiaohua spoke. You're not satisfied? If you cannot pick, Xiaohua will exchange all of them for the soul weapon. Wait a moment, senior. Madame Feng suddenly said in a trembling voice. I am just speechless. A single one of these treasures could easily fetch over 500 million gold coins. And you're willing to exchange a dozen of them for the soul weapon? That'll make me look like I am trying to take advantage of you. Then, what do you want for the soul weapon? Xiaohua asked her again, seemingly annoyed that she cannot make up her mind. Then if you don't mind, I will take these 3 divine-grade treasures. Madame Feng picked 3 of the divine-grade weapons off the floor and showed them to Xiaohua. Okay. Xiaohua nodded her head without hesitation, as she wouldn't have minded even if Madame Feng wanted all of them since soul weapons are truly priceless. Once Madame Feng accepted the divine-grade weapons, Xiaohua returned the rest into her spatial ring. Meanwhile, Madame Feng retrieved the Empyrean Overlord from the display case and handed it to Yuan. Thank you for doing business with Phoenix Heaven, esteemed guests. This is the Empyrean Overlord. Yuan held the massive sword that was nearly his height with both of his hands, barely keeping it from falling due to its immense weight. This is much heavier than I'd expected, Yuan exclaimed afterward. Well, it weighs over 1,000 genes, not to mention the soul weapon hasn't recognized you as its master yet. If you can control it, it should become as light as a feather. Madame Feng said. And then she continued. Oh, I forgot to ask you this, but have you been acknowledged by your other soul weapon? Does that matter? Yuan asked her. She nodded and continued. Most people can only contract one soul weapon at a time unless they have a strong soul. However, even if one has the capability to control 2 soul weapons at once, there's a high chance that the soul weapons would reject each other, as most soul weapons do not like sharing their resources. Sharing their resources? Yuan raised an eyebrow. Soul weapons grow with their owners, but if you have 2 soul weapons, it's only logical that they will have to share that experience, slowing down their growth by half. Madame Feng explained to him. I had no idea it would be like that, and yes, I am already contracted with the Starry Abyss, Yuan said to her. It would suck if I am unable to contract it because of the Starry Abyss, since I like them both equally. Well, there's no harm in trying. If it doesn't work out, I don't mind giving you a refund, Madame Feng said. Don't worry, Brother Yuan. With your talents, you'll have no trouble controlling 2 soul weapons at once. Xiaohua said to him. That's right, brother. Don't underestimate yourself. Yu Ro patted his back for encouragement. That light's novel. Yuan nodded and laid the sword on the floor. He then poked a hole in his finger with the Starry Abyss before squeezing a drop of his blood onto the sword. The moment his blood touched the Empyrean Overlord, it immediately began trembling. However, it was not just the Empyrean Overlord that had a reaction to Yuan's blood, as Madame Feng suddenly felt a shiver going down her spine. Light spell. This smell is... Madame Feng unconsciously raised her eyebrows after smelling an indescribable fragrance that had suddenly appeared in the room and instantly attracted her attention. Meanwhile, the Empyrean Overlord on the floor suddenly began levitating off the floor. Oh! Yuan became excited after seeing the Empyrean Overlord reacting the same way the Starry Abyss had when he contracted it. The Starry Abyss in his grasp also suddenly began trembling, almost as though it was trying to communicate with the Empyrean Overlord. After an entire minute had passed with both soul weapons trembling non-stop, they suddenly stopped moving. Another moment later. Congratulations. The Empyrean Overlord has recognized you as its owner. Empyrean Overlord. Level 0. Rank. Soul weapon. Growth rate. Very slow. Requirement. Description: a mythical sword once wielded by the Sword Emperor. It can be as light as a feather or as heavy as a star. It worked. The contract worked. It recognized me as its master. Yuan shouted in excitement after seeing the notification. Congratulations, Brother Yuan. Xiaohua said to him without much surprise on her face.
See?
There's nothing you cannot do, brother. Yuro said with a smile on her face. However, as they were celebrating, Madame Foam suddenly moved and approached Yuan. What's wrong, Madame Foam? Yuan asked her when she got extremely close to him. I'm sorry, but I cannot control myself right now. Madame Foam spoke as she suddenly grabbed Yuan's hand that was still bleeding slightly and lifted it towards her own face. Madame Foam took a deep breath with an elated expression on her face before she opened her mouth and shoved Yuan's bleeding finger into her own mouth, shocking everybody there. And Madame Foam? Yuan exclaimed, yet he couldn't remove his arm when he tried, as he was being tightly held by a spirit grandmaster, and he could feel Madame Foam sucking on his finger, or more precisely, his blood. What are you doing to my brother? Yuro also cried out loud, her eyes wide with shock. However, almost as though she was in a trance, Madame Foam ignored everything around her and continued sucking on Yuan's finger with an enchanted expression on her face, looking like she was charmed by the taste of his blood. Get away from Brother Yuan. Xiaohua waved her sleeves with a frown on her small and round face, forcing Madame Foam off the terrified Yuan. Thank God my finger is still here. Yuan sighed in relief after seeing that his finger, albeit wet with Madame Feng's saliva, was still intact. After a long moment of awkward silence, Madame Foam finally snapped out of her daze, and when she realized what she'd just done, she immediately kowtowed on the floor with her face flushed with redness. I am so sorry. I don't know what happened to me just now. Something about your blood had attracted me, and I unconsciously. I swear I didn't do it on purpose. My blood. Yuan looked at her wet finger with raised eyebrows. Why would his blood attract her? Unless Madame Foam turned out to be a vampire, there was no logical explanation behind her actions just now.
Please.
Believe me, I really don't know what happened just now. Madame Foam continued to beg for forgiveness. It's fine. I was just a little surprised, that's all, Yuan said with a smile on his face. Are you really okay, Brother Yuan? Xiaohua asked him in a worried voice. Yes, I am not hurt. She was just sucking my blood, that's all. Yuan nodded. Sucking your blood? Yuro raised her eyebrows and looked at Madame Foam, who remained kneeling there with a guilty expression on her face. Anyway, let's forget about this and continue with the tour. There's still one item left, and I would very much like to see it, Yuan said a moment later. Right away, esteemed guest. Madame Foam quickly stood up and snapped her fingers, causing the third and last display case to reveal the treasure inside. Once the third treasure was revealed, both Yuro and Yuan raised their eyebrows. This is a jade slip? Yuan placed his head in front of the display case and narrowed his eyes, making sure he wasn't seeing things. This object has this indescribable feeling to it. Yuro also looked at it with curiosity. What is this thing? The jade slip is just a container. The real treasure is inside, and inside the jade slip is a single drop of blood. Madame Foam responded. Blood. They looked at her with raised eyebrows. Of course, it is not just any ordinary blood, as it once belonged to a legendary divine beast, the Vermilion Phoenix. Madame Foam spoke with a smile on her face. Vermilion Phoenix? So there's phoenix blood inside that jade slip? Even Xiaohua became interested after learning of its origins, as phoenixes are extremely rare divine beasts. That's right, and this is authentic phoenix blood. Madame Foam nodded. How can you tell it's real phoenix blood? Yuan asked. Is there some way to test it? There is, but that requires one to consume the blood and test its effects, which is a complete waste since there's only a single drop. However, we know this is real phoenix blood without needing to test it because it was given to us by the vermilion phoenix herself. Madame Feng said to them, "What? You have met the phoenix?" Yuan looked at her with wide eyes. "No, I haven't. The phoenix blood had been passed down many generations, and it was my ancestors that obtained the phoenix blood from the vermilion phoenix." Madame Feng shook her head. "Is that so? Then does this phoenix blood actually do anything besides being extremely rare?" Yuan asked her. "Of course." Madame Feng quickly nodded. "Phoenix blood is a miracle treasure with many effects. A single drop can bring a half-dead man back to life. It can also heal any illness and injuries, and it could even regrow your limbs. Furthermore, if you consume phoenix blood, your longevity will increase significantly. Depending on the quality of the blood and the strength of the phoenix it came from, it can grant even a mortal over 10,000 years of longevity without needing to cultivate. Heal any illness or injuries?" A profound expression appeared on Yuan's face when he heard that, and an idea immediately appeared in his mind. If the translucent dew of flawlessness affected my body in real life, maybe this phoenix blood could also heal my illness? Even if it's only a possibility, I must obtain this phoenix blood at all cost. What do you want in exchange for the phoenix blood?" Yuan decided to ask her. "You want this phoenix blood?" Madame Feng looked at him with a surprised face, as did Yuan and Xiaohua. "Why does he want the phoenix blood?" "Yes." Yuan nodded. "I don't really know. I have had countless offers before, but none of them managed to attract me, and I don't have anything in mind for now." Madame Feng said, "How about the other divine-grade treasures? Xiaohua can give you all of them for the phoenix blood." Xiaohua suddenly chimed in. Since this is her first time seeing such intense desire from Yuan's eyes, she wanted to do her best to assist him. "I'm sorry, Senior, but I would prefer something else." Madame Feng apologized to her. "If you don't say what you want, then how are we supposed to know what to trade?" Yuan asked with a slight frown on her face. "Well, although I have never really thought about what I wanted in exchange for the phoenix's blood, I think I have something in mind now." Madame Feng spoke in a nervous tone, and she turned to look at Yuan afterward. "Huh." Yuan raised his eyebrows after noticing her gaze, but he soon realized what she wanted from him. "You want my blood?" he asked her. Madame Feng did not immediately respond and remained silent for a long moment before nodding her head in an embarrassed manner. "Okay, how much do you want?" Yuan immediately agreed. "As long as it doesn't kill me, I'll give you however much blood you want." "Oh, really?" Madame Feng's eyes flickered with excitement. "Lightsbell. B brother, are you really going to?" Yuan looked at him with disbelief. Although it may appear quite the bargain to obtain real phoenix blood by exchanging his own blood, this entire situation appeared extremely suspicious, as it was simply too good to be true. "Yes, it's fine. It's only my blood. It'll return sooner or later." Yuan nodded. He then looked at Madame Feng and continued, "How do you want to draw my blood?" I was just thinking about drinking it straight from your body," she said. "Drinking it straight from my body?" Yuan trembled in fright after hearing her words. "This is for the phoenix blood. I must endure it." Yuan cried inwardly before nodding. Light's novel. "Go ahead." He lifted his arm, showing her his pale and smooth arms. Seeing this, Madame Feng unconsciously licked her luscious red lips. Yuan trembled even more after seeing this, thinking to himself that Madame Feng being a vampire was becoming more and more likely. "If you do anything suspicious to Brother Yuan, Xiaohua will not hold back this time like previously," Xiaohua suddenly warned her with narrowed eyes. "I wouldn't dare, Senior," Madame Feng said with a fearful expression. "Why don't we go somewhere more comfortable?" Madame Feng then suggested to Yuan. After Yuan nodded, Madame Feng said, "Follow me." Sometime later, they entered this room that was behind some curtains on the 6th floor, and it was clearly Madame Feng's personal room, as the room was filled with furniture and even a large bed. "Please take a seat on the bed." Madame Feng pointed at the large red bed. "Okay." Yuan nodded and sat on the bed without hesitation. Madame Feng then sat beside him with Yuan and Xiaohua standing a few meters away. "Whenever you're ready," Madame Feng said to him in a gentle voice. Yuan nodded before using the starry abyss to cut a small opening on the lower area of his palm, and blood immediately began flowing out. Madame Foam quickly grabbed his hand and kissed his wound with her soft lips, not letting even a single drop of his blood go to waste. Erotic noises came from Madame Foam as she savored Yuan's blood that was incomprehensibly delicious for some reason, and just a single drop of it made Madame Foam completely addicted to it. Meanwhile, Yuan tried his best to keep a poker expression on his face, but the feeling of Madame Feng's soft lips was simply too stimulating, especially her tongue that was gently licking his wound, almost like a dog. Why do you think she likes my brother's blood so much? Is she actually a vampire disguised as a human? Yuro whispered to Xiaohua as they watched. Xiaohua shook her head and said, "No, she's not a vampire." As for why she's consuming Brother Yuan's blood, Xiaohua can think of a few. Brother Yuan's blood may be special. Perhaps he has a unique bloodline that has the effect of making people addicted to it.
Huh?
Is that even possible? Yuro looked at her with wide eyes. Xiaohua nodded and said, "There are many unique bloodlines in this world, and some of them have powerful and incomprehensible effects, such as having blood that can increase magical beasts' cultivation or blood that can strengthen even treasures." Wow. Yuro expressed her awe after hearing what bloodlines could do. But if my brother's blood can affect humans, why aren't we affected by it?
Yuro then asked.
Perhaps it only affects some people, like how some medicines work better on some than others, Xiaohua said. That makes sense.
I know that.
Many minutes later, Yuan was beginning to feel lightheaded, so he tapped Madame Feng's shoulders and said, "I think I am at my limit. If I lose any more blood, I'll probably die from blood loss." Madame Feng removed her lips from his wound a few seconds later, even releasing a loud and satisfied sigh, sounding as though she'd just drank something delicious. "Thank you, esteemed guest. I don't know why I crave for your blood, but I am now satisfied," Madame Feng said to him. However, Yuan did not respond. "Esteemed guest." Madame Feng noticed that Yuan was staring at her with wide eyes, so she called him again. "Your eyes, they changed colors," Yuan said to her, whose brown eyes had suddenly turned golden after drinking his blood. Madame Feng immediately rushed to look for a mirror after hearing Yuan's words, almost like she was in a panic. "It's gold. It's really golden," Madame Feng suddenly exclaimed in an excited voice, dumbfounding the people in the room.
Ha ha ha.
"It has returned. My powers have returned." Powers? Yuan raised his eyebrows in a puzzled manner, wondering what she was talking about. "It's a miracle. My powers are starting to return. Ha ha ha." Madame Feng danced around like an excited little girl after seeing her golden eyes in the mirror. Meanwhile, Yuan and the other two girls were staring at her with a dazed look on their faces. What was she so excited about? What did she mean by, "her powers are back," when she's already at the Spirit Grandmaster realm? Are you okay?" Yuan suddenly asked her. Madame Feng immediately turned to look at Yuan, but her gaze towards him had changed significantly compared to previously, almost like she was seeing him in a new light. She turned around and walked to him very quickly before stopping a meter away and lowering her body until both her knees were on the floor, and she proceeded to press her forehead onto the floor made of marble, kowtowing to Yuan. "Esteemed guest. No, young master. Thank you very much for restoring my powers even if it's only slightly," Madame Feng said to him. I don't really understand," Yuan said while scratching his head. Madame Feng then said, "To tell you the truth, I am not exactly human. In fact, I am a divine beast, the vermilion phoenix." "You're a phoenix?" Yuan exclaimed in a shocked voice. "No way." Even Yuro and Xiaohua were startled by this reveal by Madame Feng. "Yes, however, due to some circumstances, my bloodline was cursed and my powers have been sealed and I am forced to live my life as a human. I have been living such a life for over 10,000 years now." Madame Feng continued to reveal even more secrets about herself that she'd kept a secret for over 10,000 years. 10,000 years. Yuan cannot imagine living for so long and was greatly shocked to hear that Madame Feng had this much experience. So your powers have returned, huh? That's great to hear, Yuan said with a smile. Yes, but it's only a small amount, and I can still feel the curse restricting my body.
Madame Feng sighed.
And then she lifted her head to look at Yuan with a hopeful gaze and continued, However, young master, I believe your blood can help me remove this curse and allow me to be free once again. My blood? Yuan raised his eyebrows in a surprised manner.
Yes.
For some reason, I am attracted to your blood, and after drinking it, my curse weakened, so I can only assume that your blood has the ability to remove my curse. Madame Feng said, Therefore, I plead the young master for help. Please help get rid of this curse that has trapped me in this lower heavens for 10,000 years. I will do anything in return. After a moment of silence, Yuan spoke in a calm voice. If my blood can really help you remove your curse, I would gladly help by giving you as much blood as you need. However, it requires time for my blood to recover, and I don't have the time to wait around, not to mention who knows how much blood you will need to fully remove that curse. That's right. Brother Yuan will soon climb the stairway to heaven until he reaches the peak. He doesn't have the time to linger in this small place. Xiao Hua also chimed in. Stairway to heaven? Madame Feng looked at him with surprise, and she became silent. Are you okay? Yuan asked her after she remained silent for a minute. After blinking her eyes in a dazed manner a few times, Madame Feng suddenly said to Yuan, Young master, if you cannot stay here, then I will follow you until I am free of my curse. Of course, I won't selfishly request your help free of charge. Everything in this store, including myself, I shall bestow to the young master. As long as you let me follow you and consume your blood occasionally, you can do whatever you want with these treasures or my body. Everything in this store? Yuan looked at her with a gawking expression. He cannot imagine obtaining so many expensive treasures at once, and all he needed to do was share some of his blood. I won't ask you to give your treasures since I don't need so many treasures that I cannot use, and I don't want to feel greedy, like I'd taken advantage of you, who is currently in a bind because of a curse. I am satisfied with just the phoenix blood, Yuan said with a gentle smile on his face. Seeing Yuan's blinding smile, Madame Feng narrowed her eyes before bowing to him again. Thank you, young master. Madame Feng then said, Young master, may I have some of your blood again? Just a single drop will do. Yuan nodded and extended his arm. Madame Feng lifted her head and licked the wound on Yuan's palm. A second later, the wound immediately disappeared, and a few more seconds later, a notification appeared before Yuan. Vermilion Phoenix has initiated a temporary servant contract with you. Young master, this one's full name is Feng Yuxiang or Feng Feng for short. Until my curse is lifted, I shall swear my allegiance to the young master and heed your every command without any complaints, and the young master can use my body as he pleases. Will the young master allow me to stay by your side? Yes, I don't mind. Yuan nodded. It would benefit him to have another powerful ally by his side anyway. Lights fell. You have accepted Vermilion Phoenix as your servant. Name: Feng Yuxiang. Servant grade: Divine.
Master, Yuan.
Cultivation: 9th level Spirit Grandmaster. Legacy none. Bloodline: Ancient Phoenix Bloodline. Physique: Inextinguishable Immortal Fire. Lights novel: Phoenix Fire. Rank: Heaven. Mastery level: 5. Superior Sense. Rank: Heaven. Chi Manifestation. Rank: Earth. Fly. Rank: Earth. Undying Flames. Rank: Divine. Fire Immunity. Rank: Divine. Cursed Bloodline. Rank. Congratulations! Because you have obtained a Divine Beast as your servant, you have been awarded the unique title Divine Beast Tamer. After Yuan accepted Feng Yuxiang as his servant, an announcement appeared in the sky for every player to witness. Congratulations! Player Yuan has become the first player to obtain a Divine Beast servant. The announcement immediately caused an uproar within the community, creating a wildfire on the internet shortly later. Divine Beast. Player White Lotus mumbled to herself as she stared at the announcement in the sky with a dazed expression on her face, and she turned to look at her two-tailed black cat. As the first player to have obtained a servant, she was naturally proud of herself. But after player Yuan suddenly came out of the blue and obtained a divine-grade servant, her achievements were instantly overshadowed. Now that player Yuan has obtained a divine beast, she might as well treat her achievement as though it had never happened. Meanwhile, back in Feng Yuxiang's room, Yu Rou and Xiaohua were staring at Feng Yuxiang with a shocked expression on their faces. Brother just obtained a phoenix as his servant. Yu Rou mumbled in a low voice. Although she couldn't help but be slightly envious of Yuan, she was also proud of him for yet another incredible achievement that will without doubt shake the entire world. Xiaohua, on the other hand, had an uncomfortable and indescribable feeling in her chest, almost like something important and special had been taken away from her. "Thank you, young master," Feng Yuxiang said as she suddenly stood up and kissed Yuan on the cheeks.
Ah!
Yu Rou shouted loudly after seeing this, her eyes wide with shock. Sometime later, Yuan asked Feng Yuxiang, "I can call you Feng Feng, right? What are you going to do with this place if you are going to follow me?" "Yes, the young master can address me as he pleases. As for the Phoenix Heaven, since I don't have anyone I trust enough to entrust them this place, I will simply close the store down since I won't have the time to manage it anymore," she responded. "I see." Yuan nodded, and he continued a moment later. "By the way, the Phoenix blood. Here is the Phoenix blood, young master." Feng Yuxiang then handed him the jade slip that contained the Phoenix blood. "Oh yeah, since you are actually the Vermilion Phoenix, does this mean this blood is yours?" Yuan suddenly asked her. "That's right, young master." Feng Yuxiang nodded, and she continued, "However, the blood within that jade slip was extracted from my body before I was cursed, so you can also say it's no longer my blood." "How does the curse work, exactly?" Yuan then asked her. "Well, it seals my cultivation base and suppresses it, not allowing me to ascend to the next realm no matter how much I cultivate, hence why I have been stuck in the Spirit Grandmaster realm for over 10,000 years now. Furthermore, it puts a restriction on my bloodline, forcing me to remain in my human form, and I cannot transform back into my phoenix form until the curse weakens enough." "Does this mean you are actually much stronger than your current self?" Yuan continued to ask. "That's right, young master. My real cultivation base is actually much higher because I was born in the higher realms. I am only stuck in this place now because if I would not survive in the higher realms with my current strength." Feng Yuxiang nodded. "However, my powers should return as the curse weakens. So while I cannot assist the young master much in my current state, once my curse weakens and my powers slowly return, I will be of more use to the young master in the future," she said. "If you don't mind me asking, how did you even get the curse in the first place?" Yuan suddenly asked Feng Yuxiang. Hearing his question and recalling her history, Feng Yuxiang sighed in a depressed manner before speaking. "This is going to sound silly, but we phoenixes are born with extreme pride, but that pride sometimes turns into arrogance, and being the young phoenix I was back then, I'd accidentally offended someone I wasn't supposed to, so that person cursed my bloodline, sealing my powers." Yuan stared at her with a dumbfounded expression. She had her powers sealed and her bloodline cursed just because she offended someone? Just what kind of person did she offend? And how powerful must this person be to curse a phoenix's bloodline? "At least you're being honest." Yu Rou suddenly approached them and said, "By the way, what are you going to do with that phoenix's blood, brother?" she then asked him. "I'm going to consume it, of course," he said. Why would brother Yuan?" Xiaohua also approached them and looked at Yuan with a puzzled face. "Are you injured or sick somewhere, brother Yuan?" "And no, not really." Yuan quickly shook his head. "Then why do you need the phoenix's blood, brother Yuan?" Xiaohua tilted her head in a puzzled manner. "If you are not injured, then it's about increasing your longevity. However, brother Yuan is still very young and nowhere near his limit. He doesn't need to use such a treasure to increase his longevity." In Xiaohua's view, only cultivators who have reached the end of their longevity and also the limit of their growth would require obtaining longevity from treasures, as that is the only way they can continue living. Well, it's kind of complicated, Yuan said with an awkward smile on his face. It was not as though he could tell them that he wanted to see whether the phoenix's blood could heal his body in the real world, as that would make him sound crazy. By the way, young master, I have been wondering, what kind of bloodline do you have? If your blood can weaken that person's curse, you must come from a powerful family that is even more powerful than that person, right? Feng Yuxiang suddenly asked him. Bloodline? But I don't have any unique bloodline. Yuan said. At least that's what his status says. Yuan then opened his status to in case. Bloodline none. Indeed, he did not have any bloodline according to the system. That's impossible, young master, for you to not have a powerful bloodline. Normal blood would not attract a divine beast such as myself, much less weaken the curse from a powerful cultivator in the upper heavens, Feng Yuxiang said to him with a puzzled face. I don't know what else to say since I really don't have any special bloodline, and I am not from some powerful family, Yuan said. Feng Yuxiang became silent with a pondering expression on her face. A few moments later, she spoke. Although I didn't mention this before, my phoenix blood also has the ability to awaken bloodlines. In fact, all divine beasts have such ability. If you drink my blood, perhaps you will learn more about your bloodline. After all, not everyone is born with their bloodline awakened. Some must fulfill requirements or require assistance from treasures in order to awaken their bloodlines. Really? Yuan raised his eyebrows. Perhaps that's why the system cannot recognize his bloodline, as it has yet to awaken. Anyway, we'll know whether I have a bloodline or not after I consume the phoenix blood. I just have to break the jade slip, right? Yuan asked Feng Yuxiang. Allow me to help you, young master. Yuan nodded and handed her the jade slip. Feng Yuxiang then placed the jade slip above Yuan's head and said, Open your mouth, young master. Yuan lifted his head and opened his mouth. Feng Yuxiang then snapped the jade slip in half, and a single drop of golden blood escaped from the jade slip, falling directly into Yuan's throat. A few seconds later, you have consumed a drop of vermilion phoenix blood. You have gained 50,000 years of longevity from consuming vermilion phoenix blood. All of your injuries and illness has been cured. The vermilion phoenix blood is reacting to your bloodline, attempting to awaken bloodline. Light spell. Failed. Attempting to awaken bloodline again. Failed. Final attempt to awaken bloodline, Light's novel. Failed. Vermilion phoenix blood is too weak to awaken your bloodline. Heaven refining physique activated. Vermilion phoenix blood has been refined. You have obtained the skill, superior regeneration, from refining vermilion phoenix blood. Superior regeneration. Rank, heaven. Description. Greatly improves all of your regeneration abilities. Yuan looked at Feng Yuxiang afterward and said, I think the vermilion phoenix blood is too weak to awaken my bloodline.
What?
My blood is too weak. Feng Yuxiang exclaimed in a shocked voice. That's outrageous. My blood has the capabilities to awaken all bloodlines below the divine grade. However, Feng Yuxiang suddenly turned silent, and she continued a moment later. Actually, that would make sense since your blood was able to weaken that person's curse, so it's not too far-fetched to say your bloodline is above the divine grade. Feng Yuxiang looked at Yuan with a gaze of admiration and even a hint of fear within her eyes. People who are born with bloodlines above the divine grade are too far and few in between, and only extremely powerful families in the upper heavens have the capabilities to give birth to someone with such a powerful bloodline. Just who is Yuan? What kind of powerful cultivation family is he from? Brother Yuan has a bloodline that's above divine grade? Xiao Hua also looked at Yuan with wide eyes filled with shock. It has been a while since she felt this way, probably not ever since she first witnessed Yuan consuming monster cores. While Feng Yuxiang and Xiao Hua stared at Yuan with dazed looks on their faces, Yuro spoke. What are the grades for bloodlines? Though, I can already imagine how powerful divine grade is just by its name. There are many grades for bloodlines. The lowest grade would be royal grade, then imperial grade, and finally divine grade. Of course, there are still much more powerful bloodlines that are above the divine grade, such as the ancient grade, but you only see people with that kind of bloodline in the upper heavens, not a small place such as the lower heavens, Feng Yuxiang explained. And since my vermilion phoenix blood could not awaken the young master's bloodline, it means that his bloodline is above the divine grade and too powerful for my blood to do anything. Then what could possibly awaken my bloodline? Yuan asked her out of curiosity. Well, there are plenty of divine beasts that can awaken bloodlines above the divine grade, such as the heavenly dragon and the star tortoise, but you won't find any of them in the lower heavens, as they only live in the upper heavens. Feng Yuxiang said. The upper heavens, huh? Yuan mumbled. Are you sure you're not from some powerful cultivation family from the upper heavens, young master? After all, there's simply no way an ordinary cultivator would have such a powerful bloodline, not even if they are the luckiest people in the world. Feng Yuxiang asked him again. Yes, I am sure. Yuan nodded. Feng Yuxiang narrowed her eyes at him. Of course, she didn't fully believe him. But since Yuan didn't want to tell her, she won't continue asking, as she was afraid that it might anger him. Anyway, I still have to close down this store before I can leave this place. Can you spare me a few hours, young master? Feng Yuxiang asked him afterward. Go ahead, we'll be here. Yuan nodded. Thank you, young master. Then I'll try to get this over with as soon as possible. Feng Yuxiang then left the room and began closing the store down. Meanwhile, Yuan said to Yu-Ro, don't you have piano lessons to attend to today? Yu-Ro shook her head and said, No, there are no lessons on Sundays. However, I still have to cook you breakfast, so I'll do that now. Okay, Yuan nodded. After Yu-Ro logged off to prepare breakfast, Xiaohua suddenly spoke. Brother Yuan, can we really trust that woman? Feng? I think so, he nodded with a calm expression.
Why?
Do you not trust her? Well, she has done some unfavorable things,
Xiaohua said.
I guess her first impression isn't exactly the best. However, I can feel that she's not a bad person at heart, just like you, Xiaohua. Yuan said with a smile on his face, causing her to blush. Like Xiaohua, she mumbled. That's right. It's hard to explain it, but I can somehow tell whether someone is a good person or a bad person just by their aura. It's something that has been with me since I was young. While I haven't been around people for many years now, my ability still remains, Yuan said. After a moment of silence, Xiaohua nodded and said, Since Brother Yuan trusts that bird, Xiaohua will also believe in her. As for Brother Yuan's bloodline, Xiaohua will think of something. Thank you, Xiaohua, Yuan said to her, and he continued. Anyway, I will also log off for now. If Feng returns before I do, just let her know that I will be back later. Xiaohua nodded, and Yuan logged off the next second with his heart throbbing with excitement, as he was impatient to see whether the vermilion phoenix blood had affected his body in the real world, just like the translucent dew of flawlessness had. After logging off Cultivation Online, Yuan immediately began trying to move his real body, hoping that the vermilion phoenix blood had cured his illness and healed his crippled body. But alas, he quickly realized that nothing had changed when he still couldn't move his limbs or see the world around him. However, he was not discouraged, and he began reciting the cultivation technique inside his head, silently praying that it would work. Even if my body is still crippled, as long as I can cultivate. With that thought in mind, Yuan proceeded to spend many minutes cultivating.
Ouch.
The pain returned after a few moments of cultivation, but Yuan did not give up and tried again.
Ouch.
And again.
Ouch.
And again.
Ouch.
Why? Why hasn't anything changed? My body is still useless, and I cannot cultivate. Why didn't the vermilion phoenix blood work like the translucent dew of flawlessness? Damn it. Yuan gritted his teeth in frustration and cried out in a low but deeply sorrowful voice after realizing that he was still crippled and useless, feeling as though his hopes had shattered. However, right as tears flowed from his eyes, Yuan suddenly felt a warm feeling in his heart, almost as though there was a small flame within his heart. This warm feeling gradually grew hotter and hotter, and it also began spreading throughout his body shortly later. A few minutes later, Yuan could feel his entire body burning feverishly, almost like he was inside an oven with its temperature turned up. However, this burning sensation did not feel painful, nor was it unpleasant. Is this the effects of the vermilion phoenix blood? Yuan wondered to himself, feeling as though his body was engulfed in flames just like a burning phoenix. Although Yuan did not know this at the time, his damaged meridians were actually being restored by the vermilion phoenix blood, hence the burning sensation all over his body. After sweating a bucket of sweat, the burning sensation in Yuan's body began to subdue, yet the gentle flame within his heart lingered no matter how long had passed, almost like an undying flame. Once everything calmed down, Yuan took a moment to clear his mind and began reciting the cultivation technique again. This time, Yuan could instantly recognize the difference, and the difference was as clear as day and night, like breathing with a blocked nose and breathing normally. Furthermore, although there was still slight pain while he cultivates, it wasn't as painful as before, and it was completely endurable even for long periods at a time. And many minutes later, Yuan suddenly felt a refreshing feeling spread throughout his body, starting from the center of his body until it reached the end of his limbs, making him recall the first time he'd become a cultivator. This feeling, did I become a cultivator? Yuan wondered to himself as he was unsure. Without the system telling him, he had no proof or confirmation that he had successfully become a cultivator just now. However, one thing he was certain would be his condition. Even if he'd somehow managed to become a cultivator in the real world, his body still remained crippled. With that being said, it was not as though nothing about his body had changed. Although it was only slightly, his body had regained some sense of feeling, allowing him to feel the wet blanket and his own sweat when he previously wouldn't have been able to feel a thing except for the weight of the blankets. It worked! Ha ha ha! It really worked! Yuan began laughing out loud at his success. What worked? Yu suddenly returned to the room with breakfast. Oh, nothing, Yuan said. He was simply not ready to tell her just yet. Just wait a little longer, Yu. Once I can finally start moving again. A mysterious smile appeared on Yuan's face. Ah, Brother Tian, why is your body soaked in sweat? Yu immediately realized the wet blankets and exclaimed. Lights fell. I guess it's a little hot in here, Yuan said with a weird smile on his face. Yu immediately removed the wet blanket from his body and tossed it on the floor. Light's novel. Let's quickly finish breakfast before you catch a cold, Yu said as she began feeding him soup for breakfast. A few minutes later, Yu called the servants to change the blankets and clean the bedsheets, whilst she took Yuan to the bathroom to give him a quick shower. While being cleaned by Yu, Yuan could faintly feel her hands rubbing his body, indicating that his senses were truly beginning to return. Ah, how long has it been since I last felt such sensations on my body? Yuan sighed inwardly, feeling like he was on cloud 9. However, a weird and unfamiliar sensation appeared in his body when Yu began cleaning the area below his waist, especially the area between his legs. Although he couldn't understand why, it felt unfathomably awkward, and he could feel a chill going down his spine. This weird sensation would continue to linger in his body for some time, as Yu seemed to be especially focused on cleaning around that area. Sometime later, he could feel the water rinsing his body. And then he felt a strong wind blowing on his body. By the time Yu finished cleaning Yuan, the servants had long cleaned the bedsheets and blankets in Yu's room, allowing them to sleep on it again. I made sure the blankets this time are not as heavy so you don't sweat like that again, Yu said to him before they entered the cultivation world again. Looks like Feng Feng is still trying to close the store, Yuan said after not seeing her face in the room. While they waited for Feng Yuxiang to finish closing the store, Yuan asked Xiaohua, how can someone who just became a cultivator tell that they have actually become one? Although Xiaohua was confused as to why he would ask such a basic question, Xiaohua still answered him regardless. When someone becomes a cultivator for the first time, they will be able to feel a burst of spiritual energy within their body. It's that refreshing feeling, right? Yuan asked. That's right. Xiaohua nodded. What else? Well, they will be able to sense the spiritual energy in the air. If one cannot feel spirit qi, then it means they are not a cultivator yet. Ah, that's right. Feeling the spiritual energy in the air. How could I forget such a basic thing? Yuan sighed inwardly. His excitement from cultivating successfully had messed with his ability to think properly. After asking Xiaohua a few more basic questions about cultivators, Yuan sat on Feng Yuxiang's bed and cultivated while they waited for her to return. A little over 2 hours later, Feng Yuxiang returned to the room with her body slightly glistening from sweat. I am sorry for making you wait so long for me, young master. I ran into some problems, but I have finally closed the store. Feng Yuxiang said to him. If not for some reluctant people begging her to stay in Phoenix City, she would have completed her errands much quicker. Though, as one of the top figures and the owner of one of the most famous stores in Phoenix City, it was only a given that her sudden departure would shock a lot of people in the city, especially the powerful families and individuals. Don't mind it, Yuan said, and then he continued. By the way, I have another question regarding your vermilion phoenix blood. Does it have any effects besides healing injuries, increasing longevity, and awakening bloodlines? Another effect, huh? Feng Yuxiang immediately closed her eyes to ponder. After thinking for a good minute, she suddenly opened her eyes and said, Oh, that's right. My blood can also heal one's meridians. Restore meridians? Xiaohua did mention something like that before. Perhaps that was the reason for my frustration. Now that her blood has restored my meridians, I can finally cultivate. After pondering for a moment, Yuan turned to look at Feng Yuxiang before approaching her with a wide smile on his face. Thank you, Feng. Although you may not realize it, you have saved my life with your blood. In return, no matter how much blood you want from me or when you want it, I will gladly give it to you. Yuan suddenly opened his arms and hugged Feng Yuxiang's slender body tightly, his voice filled with joy. Why, young master? Feng Yuxiang panicked when Yuan suddenly embraced her, as she could immediately feel Xiaohua glaring daggers at them. However, she also didn't dare to push Yuan away, as that could be regarded as being disrespectful. Furthermore, she has already told Yuan that he could do whatever he wanted to his body, and pushing him away would contradict her promise. Sometime later, once Yuan expressed all of his excitement through the embrace, he released Feng Yuxiang, who appeared to be sweating even more than a minute ago. Anyways, are you ready to come with us? Yuan asked Feng Yuxiang afterward. Feng Yuxiang nodded and said, No matter where the young master goes, this one shall follow. A second later, Feng Yuxiang's body suddenly became engulfed in beautiful golden flames until her body could no longer be seen, and her figure began shrinking until it was a small ball of golden flames. While Yuan was dumbfounded, Feng Yuxiang, now a ball of golden flames, flew directly at Yuan's chest where his heart was located, disappearing from the room and into his chest, and Yuan could feel a warm sensation in his heart afterward, almost like his heart was also engulfed in flames. This sensation, the warm and pleasant feeling in his heart, was very familiar, and it quickly reminded him of a similar feeling that could be felt in his real body. Are you okay, brother Yuan? Are you feeling any pain? Xiaohua asked him after Feng Yuxiang entered his body. Yuan patted his body and nodded a moment later. Yes, everything's fine. I am not hurt, nor does it feel unpleasant. He then turned to look at Yu and handed her all 3 spirit fruits and said, Here's the spirit fruits. You'll need them to tame the beasts. However, Yu only accepted 2 of them and said, You can keep the last one, brother. I just need an extra one for insurance. Although Yuan didn't really need the spirit fruit, he nodded regardless. If Yu ever needed another one, he can offer it to her again at that time. After putting away the spirit fruit, Yuan said, Then let's find you a servant now. However, Yu shook her head and said, No, it's fine, brother. There are only a few hours left before I have to prepare for school again. I'd rather spend this time just enjoying the game casually with you. Yuan immediately began to ponder. A moment later, he spoke with a bright expression on his face. I know. Why don't we go eat in some restaurant? I bet you still haven't experienced the amazing food in this world. Food, huh? I heard you can taste the food as though it was real. Yu nodded with interest. That's right. And they are incredibly tasty, Yuan said in an excited voice. Okay, let's go. Yu agreed a moment later. They left the room shortly later and began walking downstairs. When they reached the 5th floor, they realized that all of the display cases were empty and the treasures had been taken out. However, that was expected, as Feng Yuxiang had closed the store down. Once they reached the first floor, Yuan spoke out loud. Feng, what should we do about this place? A moment later, Feng Yuxiang's voice resounded in his mind, almost like she was living inside his head. You can just leave it as it is, young master. The next manager will take care of everything. I understand, Yuan nodded. Is she talking to you from inside? How come I can't hear her voice? Yuro asked him with a fascinated gaze. I am talking to the young master, through divine sense. Feng Yuxiang's voice suddenly resounded in Yuro's head.
Wow, how amazing!
Talking to people directly in their minds, that's just like telepathy. Yuro exclaimed. A few moments later, they stepped outside the store. However, to Yuan's surprise, an entire crowd had gathered outside the store, feeling almost like there was a protest of some sort going on. What is going on here? Why are there so many people here? Yuan was startled by the gathering that surrounded the entire front store, blocking his view. Furthermore, all of these people had powerful auras or luxurious clothes around their bodies, indicating that they were all experts or from wealthy families.
Who are you?
Where is Madame Foam? The people outside immediately asked them after seeing them leave the store. Just as Yuan pondered how he should respond, Feng Yuxiang's voice resounded in his head. Young master, just tell them that I am currently sleeping in my room and that I do not wish to be disturbed for the time being if they want me to reconsider my decision. Yuan then repeated her words to the people outside despite not knowing the context. Madame Feng is currently sleeping in her room, but she doesn't want to be bothered by anyone, or else she will not reconsider her decision. The place instantly turned silent when they listened to Yuan's words. Let's calm down for now and let Madame Feng rest. I'm afraid that if we continue to linger outside her store, she'll really leave the city. One of them suddenly said. Yes, you're right. The city will take a huge hit if Madame Feng or her store suddenly disappears. We cannot take this matter lightly. Well, what do you suggest we do then? We cannot just let her leave like this. No idea, but do you think Madame Feng's sudden decision was due to that powerful spiritual energy not long ago? She announced her leave shortly afterward, after all. I would not be surprised if she'd been forced to leave the city. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Madame Feng is the strongest individual in this city who has been around for over 1,000 years. Who could possibly threaten her, much less force her to leave? Light's novel. Even if someone can threaten Madame Feng, what's there to fear? The entire Golden Phoenix Bazaar has her back. If someone dares to mess with one of us, they'll definitely regret it. Do not underestimate whoever released that pressure. I was here when it happened, and it nearly gave me a heart attack. That individual is extremely strong, much stronger than Madame Feng, and everyone here. Lights fell. I believe that the individual who threatened Madame Feng to leave is a cultivator at the Spirit King level. Spirit King? Why the hell would someone like that be here? Cultivators above the Spirit Grandmaster realm may stay in this world for at most 100 years after their breakthrough before they must leave this realm and ascend to a higher realm, or else they will risk being punished by the heavens. Unless you are telling me that this person had managed to reach the Spirit King realm in 100 short years after breaking through Spirit Grandmaster. I am not lying to you. The pressure really felt that powerful. While the people gathered outside the store argued with each other, Yuan took this chance to slip away from the Golden Phoenix Bazaar with Yuro and Xiao Hua following behind. Man, that was chaotic. Just how popular are you, Feng? Yuan wiped the cold sweat from his forehead after managing to escape from that frenzied crowd. I've been in this city ever since I came down here from the upper heavens, and due to my high cultivation, people quickly began looking up to me as some sort of guardian for the place. Feng Yuxiang explained to him. My reputation eventually peaked, and I am somewhat revered by the people in that city. After a moment of silence, she continued. However, none of that matters now, as I have the young master. By the way, young master, I know you said that you don't want my treasures, but if you ever change your mind, just let me know. Although the treasures are valuable, it's nothing compared to the freedom you are giving me, young master. Yuan nodded. After leaving the Golden Phoenix Bazaar, Yuan asked Feng Yuxiang, Do you know any good place to eat, Feng? Since you've been here forever, you should know every building in this city, right? I'm sorry, young master, but I rarely leave the Golden Phoenix Bazaar. However, there is this place that I have heard numerous times from others throughout the years. It's a restaurant called Phoenix's Nest. Phoenix's Nest? People really like using the name Phoenix in this city, huh? Yuan said. Well, I kind of did save the city from a very powerful beast before, when I still had some of my Phoenix powers left. The city used to be called something else before.
Feng Yuxiang said.
Oh, you saved an entire city? Then you're just like my brother. Yuan smiled. Sometime later, after asking around, Yuan and the others finally reached the restaurant named Phoenix's Nest. How many will be dining today? Esteemed guests. The waiter by the door greeted them when they approached the restaurant's entrance. 3, Yuan said. 3, right? Please follow me. The waiter then brought them to a small table and said, That is the menu. Just raise your hand when you're ready to order, and someone will be with you. Thank you, Yuan said as he grabbed the menu and began flipping through the pages. Just order whatever you want, Yuan said to Yuan. However, Yuan sat there with a dazed expression on her face, seemingly in deep thoughts. What's the matter, Yuan? Is something bothering you? Yuan asked her after noticing her strange behavior. Hearing his question, Yuan quickly snapped out of her daze and shook her head before speaking. That's no it, brother. It's just that I never thought the day would come where the two of us would be sitting in a restaurant and eating food like a normal family. Even though this is just a game, it feels too real to ignore. Yuan looked at her with a soft gaze and he nodded. You are right. While this world may not be real, our experience and feeling in this world certainly are, and I cannot wait to explore more of it with you. Me, too, brother. Yuan nodded with a bright smile on her beautiful face. Sometime later, Yuan raised his hands, and someone approached them to take their order. Yuan then proceeded to name dishes after dishes, dumbfounding both Yuan and the waiter. See, can you even eat that much? Yuan stared at him with a gawking expression. If Yuan could eat that much in the real world, she would definitely have trouble feeding him every day. Of course, or else I wouldn't be ordering it. Yuan replied to her with a confident expression on his face before he returned to order more dishes. After spending a couple of minutes naming out nearly every dish on the menu, Yuan finally placed the menu down on the table and said, That's all from me. The waiter there had the urge to cry out loud, It's literally all from you. Fortunately, the waiter managed to suppress his thoughts and responded with a stiff smile on his face. Thank you, esteemed guests. I will let the chief know. The waiter then walked away. However, the waiter returned a few minutes later with a middle-aged man who didn't appear to work there with his luxurious appearance. Once the two were standing by their table, the middle-aged man said with a friendly smile on his face, Excuse me, esteemed guest. My name is Xin Ben, and I am the manager of this restaurant. It appears that you have ordered a massive amount of food from us, and I would like to offer my gratitude for that. However, as there's been an increase of customers who dine and dash lately, we will have to require some payment upfront as a form of insurance. 50% of the total amount is enough. That makes sense. Yuan nodded his head and asked, How much is the entire bill? 5,400 gold coins, esteemed guests. Xin Ben quickly said. 5,400 gold coins. Yuan's eyes widened with surprise. This restaurant is at least 10 times more expensive than the luxurious restaurant he went to previously that had cost him 500 gold coins. As expected of one of the wealthiest cities in this world, everything is incredibly expensive. I really need to start paying attention to the price of each item. Yuan noted to himself as he retrieved 5,400 gold coins and handed them to the manager. I'll pay the full amount now. Thank you, esteemed guest. And I deeply apologize for this inconvenience. The smile on Xin Wenbin's face widened after he accepted the money, and he bowed to them before leaving them alone again. Spending thousands of gold on food. Only someone like you would be able to spend so luxuriously, brother. Yuan said to him afterward. Ha! Yuan laughed awkwardly, as he was too excited and forgot to look at the prices before it was too late. Though, At least he wasn't as poor as before, where 500 gold coins were enough to make him completely broke. About 20 minutes later, the food they ordered began coming in one at a time, and they immediately started eating the food, especially Yuan, who had essentially become a food monster and stuffed the food into his mouth as though they were nothing, allowing the waiters to continue putting dishes on the table without overfilling it. Brother. Yuan was shocked by his seemingly borderless stomach. How can so much food fit inside his body? It also made her worry that she might not be feeding him enough in the real world, since the amount of soup she feeds to him is literally nothing compared to the amount he's gobbling up now, almost like comparing a drop of water to an entire ocean. Brother Tian, should I increase the amount of soup I feed you? If it's not enough, you can just tell me, you know? I'm afraid that I might starve you to death after seeing how much you can eat right now. Yuan said to him sometime later. Don't worry about it, Yuan. I only have this appetite whenever I am in this world. A single bowl of soup is more than enough to fill my stomach outside. Yuan said to her. Hearing their conversation, Xiaohua suddenly spoke. Brother Yuan's appetite is probably caused by his unique physique. Furthermore, because cultivators expend a lot more energy than normal people, we also need to eat a lot more. Of course, we usually substitute the difference with the spiritual energy we absorb with some cultivator, even changing their diet to spiritual energy only. So, you're telling me that cultivators can survive without food as long as they absorb the spiritual energy in the air? Yuan asked. That's right. A cultivator at Brother Yuan's level can last a month without food, but he'll need to drink water at least once a week. Once a cultivator reaches the Spirit Grandmaster realm, they can stop eating or drinking entirely and survive only on spiritual energy.
Xiaohua said.
I see. Yuan nodded, and she returned to eating her food. About an hour later, once the table had nothing but empty dishes left, Yuan said while patting his round stomach, What should we do now, Yuan? Can you even do anything besides sitting while in that state, brother? Yuan responded with a smile on her face. I'll be fine, he nodded. Well, I am also full, so I don't feel like doing anything right now. However, I don't want to just sit around and do nothing, so let's explore this city until it's time for me to leave, Yuan suggested. Sounds good, Yuan said. After sitting around for a few more minutes, Yuan and Yuan proceeded to walk around the city, almost like they were taking a stroll in the park. Lights novel. Of course, there were a few young masters that wanted to disturb the siblings' peaceful time together when they saw the beautiful Yuan. However, before they could even approach them, like a guardian spirit, Xiaohua pressured them with an invisible pressure, taking care of the trouble before it even began. Although Xiaohua saw Yuan as a rival for Yuan's attention, when she saw the joy on Yuan's face whenever he spoke with, or even looked at Yuan, she simply cannot allow anyone to disturb that happiness, as she feared that she might have to experience that cold aura coming from Yuan again whenever someone messes with Yuan in his presence, something that put chills in her body even now if she tried to remember his cold gaze. After spending a few oddly peaceful hours within a city as large as the Phoenix City mostly due to Xiaohua's protection, Yuan logged off the game to cook dinner for Yuan. Yuan decided to stay in the game for a few more minutes to spend some time with Xiaohua until it was time for dinner. After logging off, Yuan began feeding him dinner. However, after drinking his bowl of soup, Yuan spoke in a puzzled voice. Yuan, did you make less soup today? My stomach isn't as full as it normally would be. It was an odd feeling to not be full after drinking a whole bowl of soup, as he would usually feel quite full afterward. Lightsvol Omicron M. Huh? That's not possible. I didn't change the amount, Yuan responded in a surprised voice. However, if you're still hungry, I can go ahead and make another bowl of soup for you. No, it's fine. I'm not hungry, but I am also not full. It's that kind of feeling, Yuan said to her. Okay, then I will cook a little bit more tomorrow morning, Yuan nodded. By the way, your room is finally clean again, brother. However, since you're already here, let's sleep together for another night, as we don't usually do this. Okay, Yuan said. I'm going to make sure I am prepared for school tomorrow. You can go to sleep first, Yuan said to him before leaving the room. Normally, Yuan would agree with her and go to sleep, but now that he has become a cultivator in the real world too, he wanted to cultivate whenever he had the time. Although he wasn't sure that cultivating might help his condition, it wouldn't hurt to try. Maybe the reason the bowl of soup wasn't enough for me is because I am now a cultivator, which will require me to consume more energy. Yuan pondered to himself before he began reciting the cultivation technique inside his mind, slowly absorbing the spiritual energy around him. Xiao Hua was right. I can now sense the spiritual energy in this room now that I have become a cultivator. This means I am not dreaming, and that I have actually become a real cultivator in this world too. Yuan was filled with enthusiasm for the future. Even if becoming a cultivator won't help him move or see again, if he cultivated enough, maybe he'll also be able to use divine sense in this world, and that would be worth all of his effort. And with that in mind, Yuan began to focus on cultivating. Half an hour later, Yu returned to the room, and she mistook Yuan's cultivation as sleeping since his breathing pattern was completely relaxed and seemingly rhythmic. Since I was in the store at that time, I didn't see any announcements, but one should make the announcement if they made a divine beast their servant, right? Oh well, I'll see once I go online, Yu thought to herself as she began to surf the internet. And as she'd expected, when she opened the forums, all she could see was Player Yuan being mentioned in the titles, and his presence filled pretty much the entire page. Player Yuan makes the headlines again. And this time he's obtained a divine beast as a servant. Incredible. Player Yuan has obtained another servant, a divine beast. What grade could this divine beast possibly be? If you know Player Yuan, I am willing to pay $1 billion if you can reveal his real identity to me. $1 billion, huh? That's quite the tempting offer. But alas, I wouldn't betray Brother Tian, even if you offered me the world. Yu shook her head, and she began reading through all of the posts that mentioned Yuan. While Yu lost track of time as she was engrossed with the internet talking about her brother, Yuan was silently cultivating on the bed, slowly absorbing the spiritual energy in the room. His cultivation speed compared to the game was incredibly slow, and it had taken him nearly 2 hours to enter the next level whilst it only took less than half an hour to reach second-level Spirit Apprentice in the game. What are the cultivation stages in the real world anyway? I doubt it's the same as the game. However, since I have no other references, I'll just follow the cultivation stages in Cultivation Online, Yuan thought to himself as he continued to cultivate even when Yu entered the bed and went to sleep. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Yuan spent the entire night cultivating, and by the time morning came, he had managed to break through only 2 times, reaching 3rd-level Spirit Apprentice. Good morning, Yu. Yuan greeted her the moment she woke up and rubbed her eyes. Brother? You're awake early today, she said to him in a drowsy voice. Yuan merely smiled at her words, as he obviously didn't sleep the entire night. However, despite not getting any sleep, he was as energetic as ever, even feeling better than he normally would after a good night's sleep. After spending a few minutes resolving herself to wake up, Yu eventually left the bed and went to prepare for the day. Yu returned to the room an hour later with 2 bowls of soup and a wet towel to wash Yuan's face. Brother, I cooked 2 bowls of soup for breakfast today. If you cannot finish it, don't force yourself, she warned him before she began feeding him. However, to her surprise, Yuan managed to finish both bowls of soup to the very last drop. 2 bowls of soup. For some reason, I am still not full, Yuan said in an awkward voice afterward.
What?
You're still not full? How is that even possible? Yu looked at him with wide eyes. Why did his appetite suddenly increase so drastically? Is this somehow related to what has happened to him recently? I should let Dr. Wang know about this just in case there's something wrong. I also need some advice on his diet if it remains like this, Yu thought to herself. Brother, I know you're not full, but I am afraid of overfeeding you. So I'll have to ask for Dr. Wang's advice before I decide to feed you anymore, okay? Yu then said to him. Yes, that's fine. Like last night, while I am not full, I am also not hungry either, Yuan said. Okay, I'll let him know now before I go to school. Sometime later, on her way to school, Yu called Dr. Wang and explained to him about Yuan's situation. The young master's appetite suddenly increased, huh? This might actually be a good sign, because that means his body is requiring more energy to function, and that usually happens when their body is growing stronger. I suggest you continue to feed him 2 bowls of soup for a few more days to see if his growing appetite is permanent or only temporary. Dr. Wang said to her through the phone. If the young master's appetite is permanent, I suggest you increase his diet slowly, without overfeeding him so that his body is getting the energy it requires. I will come to check on him once a week to monitor his body's condition just in case. I understand. Thank you, Dr. Wang. Meanwhile, Yuan returned to the world of cultivation. Are you going to partake in the disciple examination at the Dragon Essence Temple now, Brother Yuan? Xiaohua asked him after he returned. That's right. Yuan nodded. Even though Brother Yuan will progress his cultivation base faster outside? Xiaohua asked him. My purpose for going to the Dragon Essence Temple is not to improve my cultivation base. Instead, I wish to expand my knowledge and experience with cultivators so I can better deal with them in the future. I acknowledge that I am still far too naive in this world regarding cultivators and their nature, and I want to understand this world more. Although it's important to improve my cultivation base, it's also important that I enjoy this world, as that has been and still is my intention since the beginning. Xiaohua turned silent after hearing his words. Brother Yuan is indeed lacking experience when it comes to cultivators. Although he might be fine now with Xiaohua and that phoenix protecting him, who knows what might happen in the upper heavens, where there exists cultivators much stronger than us. It'll definitely benefit Brother Yuan in the long run the earlier he familiarizes himself with the competitive nature of cultivators and realizes the brutal nature of the cultivation world. Okay, Xiaohua will no longer stop Brother Yuan from going to the Dragon Essence Temple now. However, it would lose all meaning if Xiaohua is besides Brother Yuan the entire time while he's a disciple, so Xiaohua will let Brother Yuan live his disciple life by himself. Of course, Xiaohua will still protect Brother Yuan when he's in danger. Xiaohua said to him, How are you going to protect me if you're not there? Yuan raised his eyebrows. Xiaohua then pointed at the necklace around his neck. Light's novel. Oh, that's right. You can go into the necklace, like Feng can enter my body, Yuan finally recalled. Light's vol omicron. Anyway, do you know where the Dragon Essence Temple is located? Do you think we'll make it there before the examination begins? Although I can enter the sect without participating in the examination if I spoke to Xian Wuhan's grandfather, I still want to experience it like how people normally would. The token given to you should tell you the location, Xiaohua said, and she continued, just activate it with your spiritual energy, and its location will appear inside your mind. Yuan followed her instructions and retrieved the Dragon Essence Temple Exam token before activating it with his spiritual energy. A few seconds later, an image of the Dragon Essence Temple and its location appeared inside his head like some sort of map. However, Yuan immediately frowned when he realized just how far away this place was. It's over 100,000 miles away from our current location. Even the flying sword won't be fast enough. Unless we take the teleportation device again, I don't think we'll make it in time for the examination, he sighed. Allow me to help, young master. Feng Yuxiang's voice suddenly resounded, and a small ball of golden flames emerged from his chest a second later. Feng. Yuan looked at her with raised eyebrows. I can carry the young master to the Dragon Essence Temple. It's only 100,000 miles. And I can fly much faster than a flying sword. Feng Yuxiang suggested to him. You'll carry me? Yuan looked at her with wide eyes. Unless the senior wants to carry you, but with the difference in your sizes. Feng Yuxiang looked at Xiaohua, whose head could not even reach Yuan's shoulders. She cannot imagine someone so tiny carrying Yuan, who is almost twice her height. Actually, she can, but it would be an incredibly hilarious sight. But alas, laughing at Xiaohua will definitely get her killed. However, Xiaohua still frowned after hearing Feng Yuxiang's words, as she hated her height being mentioned more than anything else. Feng Yuxiang immediately began sweating after noticing Xiaohua's narrowed gaze. Anyway, since I am also a phoenix, I can fly faster than cultivators normally would be able to. 100,000 miles. We can arrive by tonight. By tonight? Yuan began pondering. If we can reach there by tonight, it'll save us a lot of time I can use to cultivate in the real world. After pondering for a moment, Yuan nodded his head and said, Okay, I'll have to trouble you for this one, Feng. Don't even mention it, young master. My body is already yours. There's no need to thank me every time you use it, Feng Yuxiang said with a shameless smile on her face. Are you ready to leave now, young master? Feng Yuxiang asked him a moment later. Yes. Then if you'll excuse me. Feng Yuxiang suddenly lowered her body and picked up Yuan, carrying him like a princess. And before Yuan could even react, two massive fiery wings suddenly blossomed from Feng Yuxiang's back. When the people around them saw this, they were immediately shocked. That's Madame Feng. What's she doing here? And who's that young man she's carrying? Feng Yuxiang ignored the uproar she caused and immediately flew towards the sky, with Yuan screaming out loud like Yu Ro did when she first experienced flying with the flying sword. Which direction should I go, young master? Feng Yuxiang asked him after they were above the entire city and nearly touching the clouds. That direction. Yuan pointed to the east according to the map in his head. Feng Yuxiang nodded, and her fiery wings flapped once before they began soaring towards the east, leaving a trail of golden fire in the sky. Meanwhile, Xiaohua followed them from behind. However, even with her Spirit King cultivation base, she had to put a lot of effort in order to keep up with their speed. Though, that was to be expected, as phoenixes are known to dominate the heavens with their flying techniques. This is amazing! We're flying at a speed 10 times more than what the flying sword can achieve. Yuan was filled with excitement as they soared through the air faster than even what most fighter jets in his world could achieve. If the young master thinks this is fast, just wait until I recover my phoenix form and powers. It'll be like comparing a slow walk to a sprint. 100,000 miles? I can even travel 1 million miles in the blink of an eye. Feng Yuxiang noticed Yuan's excitement and took this chance to brag a little to improve his impression of her. 1 million miles in the blink of an eye? How could anything possibly travel that fast? Yuan mumbled in a dazed voice, as he cannot even begin to imagine traveling at such a ridiculous speed. It all depends on your movement techniques, young master. There are extremely profound movement techniques out there that can allow cultivators to travel from star to star with a single step. It's not something even I can comprehend. Movement techniques, huh? Speaking of them, I don't have any movement techniques, only martial techniques. Yuan just realized this.
What?
The young master doesn't have a movement technique? That's outrageous. Feng Yuxiang exclaimed in a shocked voice. Huh? Are movement techniques that important? Yuan raised his eyebrows after seeing her surprised expression. Of course. Young master, movement techniques are as important as martial techniques, if not even more important. When you fight with an enemy, how you move to strike and how you move to dodge or defend is extremely important, or you'll be no different than a sitting duck on the battlefield. Feng Yuxiang said to him. And she continued, if the young master does not have a movement technique, I can provide you with my movement technique. Although it's meant for phoenixes, it can still be used in the human form. Really? Yuan looked at her with flickering eyes, clearly excited for this movement technique. Of course. Feng Yuxiang then turned to look at Xiaohua and spoke to her. Senior, you won't mind me giving the young master a movement technique, right? Because Feng Yuxiang didn't want to be disrespectful to Xiaohua, who might be teaching Yuan as a teacher, she must ask for permission before teaching Yuan anything, as that is proper equities in the cultivation world, and trying to steal disciples from another is greatly frowned upon. After a moment of silence, Xiaohua nodded. The more brother Yuan learns, the better. Xiaohua does not have a good movement technique that is befitting of brother Yuan's talent, so you can give one to him. Since she was not Yuan's master, she didn't mind other people teaching Yuan, as long as what they are teaching is not complete trash and worthless. Thank you, senior. I will try my best teaching the young master. Feng Yuxiang said to her. Sometime later, after spending a few hours in the air, Feng Yuxiang suddenly stopped. She then pointed in front of them with her head and said, This place must be the Dragon Essence Temple. I can sense a profound presence coming from that place. Yuan turned to look in the direction Feng Yuxiang was looking at to see a massive place that looked like a city, but with a lot more buildings. So that's the Dragon Essence Temple, huh? It's so much larger compared to the Flying Sword sect. I don't know a flying sword sect, but the Dragon Essence Temple is one of the most powerful factions in the lower heavens, only beaten by a few places and the Heaven and Earth Palace.
Feng Yuxiang said.
Yuan nodded and said, "Anyway, the examination won't start for a few more days, so let's spend some time practicing this movement technique." Okay, let me find a suitable place. Feng Yuxiang proceeded to fly around the area until they found this empty land and descended there. "This looks like the perfect place to practice my movement technique," Feng Yuxiang said as she placed Yuan back down. Sometime later, Feng Yuxiang said, "Since this is something I learned naturally as the Vermilion Phoenix, I don't have it written on a scroll, so the young master will have to try and learn it from watching my movements. Although it might take you much longer to understand the technique this way than to read the technique straight from a book or a scroll, at least you get to witness it being executed before your eyes. Of course, it could also benefit you if you are someone who learns better from watching than reading. Also, because this movement technique is not really meant for humans, it might take the young master longer to learn it. However, I believe in the young master. If you work hard enough, you should be able to use this technique in a few years." A few years. Yuan looked at her with wide eyes. Feng Yuxiang misunderstood Yuan's type of surprise and said with a smile on her face, "I know a few years might sound a little too fast for a movement technique, but trust me, young master, I will do my best to teach you." However, Xiaohua opened her mouth to speak afterward. "Your logic does not apply to Brother Yuan, Vermilion Phoenix. If you underestimate Brother Yuan, you'll be in a world of surprise." Huh? Feng Yuxiang could not comprehend Xiaohua's words and tilted her head in a puzzled manner. However, that was to be expected, since Feng Yuxiang is unaware of Yuan's heaven-defying comprehension abilities that allow him to learn even divine-grade abilities in a few hours. And before Xiaohua could even explain, Yuan opened his mouth to speak. Feng, can you show me the movement technique? Light's novel. Right away, young master." Feng Yuxiang nodded, and she walked until she was many meters away from them. "Watch closely, young master. I will try to do this as slowly as possible, but it might still be a bit fast." Feng Yuxiang took a deep breath. Light's full Omicron. And then she began moving her legs and feet in a unique but rhythmic manner. "This is a movement technique?" Yuan raised his eyebrows when he saw Feng Yuxiang's movement techniques, as it made no sense to him. A few minutes later, Feng Yuxiang stopped and asked him, "What do you think, young master?" I don't think I understand it," Yuan responded, and he continued, "How is that going to help you dodge your opponents during a battle? You're just moving around in a small area." Feng Yuxiang pondered for a moment before speaking. "Young master, why don't you try attacking me?"
Huh?
Are you sure? Feng Yuxiang nodded and said, "Yes." Okay. Yuan retrieved his spirit sword and approached Feng Yuxiang. "Young master, you can attack me whenever you are ready. You also don't need to hold back," Feng Yuxiang said to him a moment later. After taking a deep breath, Yuan said, "Here I come." Yuan began attacking Feng Yuxiang without any real sword techniques. However, Yuan quickly realized that no matter how much he tried to hit Feng Yuxiang, she would narrowly dodge all of his attacks. "This is only the basics, young master. Let me show you what this movement technique can achieve with a high mastery level," Feng Yuxiang said to him before her fiery wings returned. She then took a step towards Yuan before disappearing from his view, almost like a ghost. "What do you think, young master?" Feng Yuxiang's voice suddenly resounded from every direction around Yuan, causing him to look around. However, no matter which direction he looked in, Feng Yuxiang was there. In fact, there were over a dozen Feng Yuxiang casually standing around him right now, almost like her body had multiplied. "What the? This is a movement technique? Are you sure you didn't clone your body instead?" Yuan said with a dumbfounded expression. Feng Yuxiang suddenly stopped moving, and a second later, her clones disappeared. "I am just moving so fast that you are seeing a dozen of me," Feng Yuxiang said. "So, as long as I learn this movement technique, my opponents won't be able to hit me?" Yuan asked her afterward. "That's correct. Unless they know your movement technique or can guess where you're going to move next, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to even graze you, much less land an accurate strike on you. And even if they somehow know your movements, they still need to be fast enough to hit you. As long as you are within the lower heavens, you will be untouchable with this movement technique. Untouchable, Yuan mumbled in a low voice. By the way, this technique is called Vermilion Phoenix Dominating the Heavens. I named it myself, Feng Yuxiang said with a prideful expression on her face. Vermilion Phoenix Dominating the Heavens? What an arrogant name for a movement technique. Xiao Hua was speechless by Feng Yuxiang's shamelessness to give the movement technique such a grand name. Sometime later, Yuan said to Feng Yuxiang, Feng, can you show me the movement technique a few more times? I have already memorized all of the movements, but I still need to understand its essence. You have already memorized the movements? Feng Yuxiang looked at him with a dazed face. There are over 1,000 movements for the movement technique. How can someone at the spirit warrior level memorize that many movements in such a short time? That was simply unbelievable. Seeing Feng Yuxiang's shocked face, Xiao Hua smiled and thought to herself, if you are shocked about something so insignificant, you might die from a heart attack after you see Brother Yuan's other talents. Meanwhile, Feng Yuxiang pondered to herself, did the young master really memorize all of the steps after watching it just once? No, that's not possible. There's no way someone from the lower heavens can possibly have such a shocking level of talent. However, the young master has a bloodline that's above the divine grade, and his origins are not clear, so he might actually be someone from the upper heavens who decided to come to the lower heavens for training, hence why there's a spirit king following him. However, even if that's the case, how can a spirit king remain in the lower heavens without being punished by the heavens with heavenly tributions? Maybe she has a treasure that hides her presence? But I have never heard of such a treasure like this before. Are you okay, Feng? Yuan suddenly called out to her. If you're tired, we can continue this later. He wondered if she was tired after that impressive demonstration. And no, I am fine. Let me show you the movements again, young master. Feng Yuxiang took a deep breath before she began displaying the Vermilion Phoenix Dominating the Heavens movement technique again. Meanwhile, Yuan stared at her with intensive eyes, looking as though he was trying to stare a hole in Feng Yuxiang's body. What an intensive gaze! Feng Yuxiang's body trembled slightly after feeling Yuan's gaze, feeling as though there was nothing she could hide from him, and almost like she was naked before his powerful gaze. Many minutes later, Feng Yuxiang finished her demonstrating the movement technique for the second time. What do you think, young master? Feng Yuxiang asked him afterward. I think I have the gist of it. Can you do it again? This time, I'll try to follow your movements. Yuan said as he approached her. You want to do the movement technique with me? Feng Yuxiang raised her eyebrows and she continued, I don't mean to be disrespectful, young master, but even if you memorize all of the movements, executing the movements is an entirely different matter. Although you may get the first couple steps correct, everything after that will be a mess. At least that's how learning movement techniques usually happen. Well, even if that's the case, how else am I going to get better at it besides practice? Yuan said to her. I guess so. Feng Yuxiang nodded. Whenever you are ready, young master, she said to him a moment later. Go ahead. After hearing his words, Feng Yuxiang began using her movement techniques again, and Yuan tried his best to follow her movements. Feng Yuxiang was dumbfounded when Yuan copied her movements flawlessly, and although his movements grew stiff and awkward towards the end, he still managed to execute the movements without any mistakes. This blew Feng Yuxiang's mind wide open. How can a mere mortal at the spirit warrior realm learn her Vermilion Phoenix Dominating the Heavens movement technique so quickly? She'd only displayed the movement technique twice. You were right, Feng. Although the beginning was simple and easy to follow, it grew increasingly exhausting and difficult to move towards the end. However, I should get it right after a few more tries, Yuan said to her with an innocent face, unaware that what he'd just done was incredibly shocking and unbelievable. Feng Yuxiang was at a loss for words. A small chuckle could be heard from Xiao Hua, who watched the entire thing from beginning to end. Xiao Hua told you not to underestimate Brother Yuan, Vermilion Phoenix. He's a prodigy who can learn divine-grade techniques in only a few hours and even learn profound techniques just by watching others, Xiao Hua said to her with a smile on her face. Although this is Feng Yuxiang's first time seeing Xiao Hua smile, she was more shocked by what Xiao Hua said. The young master can learn divine-grade techniques within hours? What kind of heaven-defying talent is that? Feng Yuxiang stared at Yuan with a dazed expression on her face. Sometime later, after resting until he could move again, Yuan began to execute the movement technique again. This time, it appeared even smoother and more accurate than previously, almost like his experience with it had leaped by at least a few years between his first and second attempt. Feng Yuxiang's jaw dropped upon seeing Yuan's improvement. Just how ridiculously talented is her young master. He could even put the talented geniuses from the upper heavens to shame with his tremendous talents. However, Xiao Hua suddenly said to her, "If you think that's the most shocking part about Brother Yuan, just wait until you see him do that." "That? What do you mean, that, senior?" Feng Yuxiang asked with her interest piqued. "You'll find out eventually," Xiao Hua shrugged, as she wanted Feng Yuxiang to find out naturally as she did. Lightsnvel. Feng Yuxiang swallowed nervously, and she silently pondered to herself what that could possibly mean. Meanwhile, Yuan spent the next hour practicing the movement technique, Light's novel. "I think I finally got it, Feng Feng. What do you think?" Yuan asked her as his legs continued to move without stopping, feeling quite comfortable with the movement technique now. "Why, yes, you have pretty much learned the technique now, young master," Feng Yuxiang said, her gaze filled with admiration. However, Yuan did not stop practicing the movement technique, and he continued until he finally received a notification. "You have learned Vermilion Phoenix dominating the heavens." Vermilion Phoenix dominating the heavens. Rank: Divine. Mastery Level 1. Description: a powerful movement technique created by the Vermilion Phoenix Feng Yuxiang. 2 hours. The young master managed to learn my movement technique that took me years to learn in just 2 short hours. Is he really human? Feng Yuxiang mumbled in a low voice as she watched Yuan perfect her movement techniques with a dazed expression on her beautiful face. While she has seen her fair share of talented cultivators in the upper heavens, none of them could compare to Yuan in terms of their comprehension skills, and even the top genius would need at least a month to learn divine-grade techniques, much less a few hours. After resting for a few minutes, Yuan said to them, "I am going to log off now, and I probably won't be back until the examination starts, so don't panic if I don't return tomorrow." "Okay. See you later, Brother Yuan," Xiao Hua said to him before disappearing into the necklace. Seeing this, Feng Yuxiang also disappeared into his chest. Once he logged off the game, Yuan immediately began cultivating in the real world until Yuro returned from school and prepared dinner for him. A few hours later, Yuro entered his room with 3 bowls of soup on a cart and some cleaning utilities. "Brother, what did you do in the game today?" Yuro asked him as she removed the blanket around his body before removing his clothes and wiping his body down with a warm, wet towel. "I learned a new technique today, a movement technique," Yuan said. "Movement techniques? What are those?" Yuro asked. Yuan proceeded to explain to her about movement techniques and how they can be used to dodge attacks and many other things.
Wow.
"So you learned another divine-grade technique?" "As expected of you, brother. It's only been a day since you started playing alone again, and you have already made significant progress. Perhaps I really am a burden to you," Yuro sighed. "Nonsense, you are definitely not a burden. If not for you, we would have never gone to Phoenix City or met with Feng Feng, not to mention the myriad of techniques, so you have definitely contributed to my progress," Yuan said. "If you say so."
I know that.
Sometime later, after cleaning Yuan's body, Yuro said, "Brother, since 2 bowls of soup was not enough yesterday, I have cooked 3 bowls of soup for tonight." "Thank you, Yuro." After feeding Yuan the second bowl of soup, Yuro asked him, "What do you think, brother? Can you eat another bowl?"
"Yes, I can," Yuan said.
"Okay." Yuro nodded and proceeded to spoon-feed him the 3rd bowl of soup.
"What about now?
Are you full now?" Yuro asked him afterward. Yuan hesitated to respond. Yuro raised her eyebrows when she saw this, and she said, Brother, it's okay to tell me the truth. If 3 bowls of soup are not enough, I will cook 4 or 5, until you are satisfied. After a moment of silence, Yuan said, although I am not full, I actually feel like I ate something this time, so perhaps I will be full after 2 or 3 more bowls. 2 or 3 more bowls. Heavens, brother, are you going to eat an entire week's worth of food every day now? Are you sure your body can handle that much food? What if you get fat? Yuro spoke in a worried voice. Huh? I don't think you'll have to worry about that, Yuan said. After all, everything he eats will naturally turn into energy that will aid him in his cultivation. And he continued, however, I don't think I need to have a full stomach every meal. Just 3 bowls are good enough for now. Okay. Then I will continue feeding you 3 bowls of soup every meal until Dr. Wang gives his advice. Yuro nodded. After Yuro finished feeding Yuan, she said to him, okay, brother. Now that your own room has been cleaned, I am going to let you sleep by yourself again. A few moments later, Yuro carried Yuan to the wheelchair before pushing him back to his own room. Do you want to play tonight, brother? Yuro asked him. Now that she knows his real identity as player Yuan, she was more willing to let him play more, so that he can continue progressing as much as possible.
No, it's okay.
In fact, I am going to take a break from Cultivation Online for a few days until the Dragon Essence Temple examination begins, Yuan said to her. Huh? You're taking a break already?
Why?
Yuro asked him with a dumbfounded expression on her face. Although missing a few days of progress might not matter when Yuan's already months, even years ahead of other players, it still doesn't make any sense why he would want to take a break so suddenly. Did something happen today? Is that why you're taking a break? Yuro asked him. It's okay to speak to me, brother. No, it has nothing to do with the game, honestly. I just want to take a break and prepare myself before I partake in the examination. Preparations for the examination in the real world? Yuro could not understand his intentions, but since Yuan insisted on taking a break, there was nothing she could do. After all, it was not as if she could force him to play the game. Okay, then I'll leave you alone now. Good night, brother. Yuro closed the lights in the room before leaving Yuan alone. Once he was alone, Yuan immediately began cultivating, and he would not stop for the rest of the night. By the following morning, Yuan had managed to break through once again, reaching 4th level Spirit Apprentice. This is taking much longer than the game. If only there were monster cores in this world or things equivalent that would allow me to increase my cultivation faster. Yuan sighed. Sometime later, Yuro entered his room to clean his face and brush his teeth before feeding him breakfast. After Yuan consumed all 3 bowls of soup, Yuro wiped his lips with a wet towel before leaving for school. Once he was alone again, Yuan returned to cultivating. Even though the progress might be slow, at least he can make some progress. Yuan repeated this process for the next 2 days, and besides eating and cultivating, he was doing nothing else, not even sleeping. By the time the Dragon Essence Temple began their disciple examination, Yuan had reached the 5th level Spirit Apprentice realm. Yuro, I am going back to Cultivation Online today. The Dragon Essence Temple should begin their disciple examination today, too, Yuan said to her after breakfast. Okay, good luck, brother. Of course, I'm sure you'll pass the exam without any effort. Yuro chuckled at Light's novel. And then she said, oh, I know you're already going to be in the spotlight, so try not to reveal your identity as player Yuan, okay? You have no idea how many players are looking for you right now. If they learn of your identity, our lives will no longer be as peaceful. I understand. Yuan responded in a nervous voice. Sometime later, Yuan returned to the world of cultivation. Welcome back, brother Yuan. Xiao Hua was the first to appear before him. I am back. The Dragon Essence Temple Disciple Examination should be today, right? Yuan asked. That's right. Xiao Hua nodded, and then she turned to look towards the direction of the Dragon Essence Temple. There's already a lot of people gathered. Then, let's get going. However, Xiao Hua shook her head and said, Brother Yuan, Xiao Hua will remain inside the necklace until you decide to leave the sect or need help. This way, Brother Yuan can experience the cultivation world the way it's meant to. If you ever need advice, Xiao Hua will speak to you using divine sense like the Vermilion Phoenix. Yuan nodded and said, It's going to feel lonely without having you by my side all the time, but I understand why you are doing this. After Xiaohua returned to the necklace, Yuan began running towards the Dragon Essence Temple. Oh, right. There will be a lot of people participating in this examination, both NPCs and players alike. In order to keep my identity safe, I should at least hide my face. Thinking that, Yuan stopped moving and retrieved the black jade mask and wore it on his face, hiding everything but his bright and innocent eyes. This should be good enough. Yuan nodded to himself before he continued running towards the Dragon Essence Temple. Sometime later, Yuan arrived at the Dragon Essence Temple, and as he'd expected, there was already a sea of people gathered there. Lightsville Omicron M.
Wow.
Is this what it feels like going to school on the first day? Yuan wondered to himself as he followed the crowd. Many minutes later, they arrived at this mountain range that had nothing but mountains and trees beside a large gate at the horizon that had a majestic sign with the words, Dragon Essence Temple on it. We are taking the examination here? Yuan raised his eyebrows. After waiting around for a few more minutes, a middle-aged man wearing colorful robes appeared before them by jumping on top of the gate. Welcome to the Dragon Essence Temple Disciple Examination. Before we begin the examination, we must verify whether or not you are actually qualified to be here. The middle-aged man spoke to them in a loud and domineering voice. Below me is a transportation gate that will teleport you to the real examination halls. However, only those who have the Dragon Essence Temple Exam token will be teleported to the examination hall. Everyone else will be teleported randomly to the mountain range behind me, and there are many powerful magical beasts that roam that area. So if you're thinking about sneaking into the disciple examination, I urge you to rethink that decision because we won't take responsibility for whatever happens to you afterward. Now, if you are ready to partake in the Dragon Essence Temple Disciple Examination, step forth and enter the gate. After he finished speaking, the middle-aged man jumped down from the gate before walking into the gate as a demonstration, disappearing into the portal. And immediately afterward, the people there began rushing towards the gate. Meanwhile, there were more than just a couple of people there who decided to remain standing still and not approach the gate, clearly hesitant to continue. As for Yuan, he followed the mass and entered the gate. A second after entering the gate, along with every person that entered the gate, Yuan was transported to this vast and empty grassland that stretched to the horizon. Furthermore, there was another gate that resembled the one they just entered a few miles away from their location. Where are we? The people there were puzzled as to why they were brought to this empty grassland. After all, what could they possibly do in this place that is related to the examination? After waiting for a few minutes for everyone to gather, the middle-aged man with the colorful robes began to speak. This will be your first examination. In this vast grassland that spans over 10,000 miles, there are 1,000 hidden jade slips, and only those who have a jade slip may advance to the next stage of the examination. You all have 2 days to advance to the next test by entering the gate over there before you are automatically disqualified and kicked out of this place. Does anyone have any questions? The participants there immediately raised their hands. What kind of examination is this? I don't see how finding a needle in a haystack has anything to do with becoming a disciple of the Dragon Essence Temple. The middle-aged man turned to whoever just spoke and said, "This is an examination based on your luck. We are simply testing your fate, whether you are fated to become a disciple or not. Although you may not understand it, one's fortune and destiny play a huge role in the cultivation world, and without either of these, you will never achieve anything great in the cultivation world, and our Dragon Essence Temple has no use for someone like that." Senior, what exactly do you mean by hidden? Are they buried underground, or are they just placed around this grassland? Another participant asked a few moments later. The middle-aged man smiled at the participant's question and said, "There are 997 jade slips resting above the ground normally, with 3 special jade slips buried within the ground. If any of you manages to find the jade slip buried within the ground, you will receive a very special reward at the end of the examination if you pass the examination, or you can exchange the jade slip to automatically become a disciple. However, if you do that, you will forfeit the reward. The choice is up to you." After answering a few more questions, the middle-aged man said, "The first examination begins." Immediately after the middle-aged man ended his sentence, the thousands of people gathered there began spreading out in every direction and running around with their heads looking left and right without stopping. Meanwhile, Yuan stood there with a calm expression on his face. This is not much different from when I had to pick spirit grass with Yuro. I should be able to find it with my divine sense, Yuan thought to himself. Why is this young lad just standing there? The middle-aged man turned to look at Yuan after noticing his odd behavior. However, when he saw the powerful aura subtly emitting from Yuan's body, he immediately gasped in shock. 5th level spirit warrior. Why the hell is someone like that participating in our disciple examination? He could instantly qualify to become an inner disciple if he spoke to a sect elder. Light's novel. It was not just the middle-aged man who had noticed Yuan's powerful presence, as a few figures within the participants had also taken notice of him. Furthermore, the sect elders that were watching the disciple examination from somewhere within the Dragon Essence Temple with a treasure were all pondering to themselves why someone at his level would go through the trouble to participate in the examination meant for beginners or those without backgrounds. In fact, there were even a few of them who thought Yuan could be a spy sent by another place. After taking a deep breath, Yuan closed his eyes and began using his divine sense to search for the jade slips. Divine sense? Impossible. He's only a spirit warrior. How can he possibly use divine sense? But that aura, this feeling, he's definitely using divine sense. The middle-aged man became even more surprised after realizing what Yuan was doing, nearly falling on his butt from shock. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Dragon Essence Temple, a dozen sect elders gathered and watched the situation from a large bucket of water that projected whatever was happening in the examination hall. What the heck? Who is this person? He can even use divine sense as a spirit warrior. Whoever he is, his background must be immensely powerful. That's probably why he's hiding his identity. What should we do? Should we just let him participate in the examination? Let's continue watching to see what he's up to. While many pairs of eyes watched Yuan's every movement, Yuan himself had already found 6 pieces of jade slip with his divine sense. It's too easy if I look for the normal jade slips. Let's try finding the ones buried in the ground for that special reward. I have 2 whole days anyway. With that in mind, Yuan walked around the vast grassland with his divine sense activated. After walking around for 3 hours with his divine sense constantly looking around, Yuan suddenly stopped moving. Oh, is this it? Lights vol Omicron M. Yuan retrieved a starry abyss and used it to dig a hole in the ground. A few moments later, he grabbed the red-colored jade slip from the ground. Meanwhile, the people watching him were speechless, as they didn't expect someone with divine sense to participate in their disciple examination. So much for luck and fate. The middle-aged man sighed after seeing the red jade slip in Yuan's hands. After obtaining one of the 3 special jade slips, Yuan proceeded to walk towards the gate. However, the middle-aged man overseeing that examination suddenly approached Yuan and blocked his path. Congratulations on finding the first special jade slip, young man. I am Elder Long, an outer court sect elder for the Dragon Essence Temple. May I have your name? The middle-aged man spoke to Yuan in a polite voice. Yuan, he responded. Yuan ho. Anyway, since you have the special jade slip, allow me to explain a few more things to you. You can obtain a special jade slip in every test, and the more you gather, the better your reward will be towards the end. Furthermore, if you manage to obtain a special jade slip for every test, you'll get to enter the Dragon Temple for 24 hours. Dragon Temple? What is that? Yuan asked. The Dragon Temple is a very special place that can only be accessed by the sect master of the Dragon Essence Temple, and once inside, you will have a limited time to search for and obtain as many treasures as you can in the given time. As for what kinds of treasures you can find inside, you will learn more about it if you actually manage to obtain access to that place. Yuan nodded and said, Okay, I will try my best. Good luck, Taoist Yuan. Elder Long said to him before leaving him alone and returning to overseeing the other participants. After Elder Long left, Yuan continued moving forward and entered the gate a few moments later, disappearing from the grassland. Once Yuan left, Elder Long turned to look at the sky and said, His name is Yuan. A prodigy who can use divine sense as a spirit warrior can't be a nobody. Meanwhile, a few of the sect elders watching the exam left the spectators' room and began trying to uncover Yuan's real background. This is the second examination? Yuan looked around the area that resembled the wilderness. Congratulations on passing the first test. In order to pass the second exam, you must hunt magical beasts. A young woman suddenly approached Yuan and said to him, "Hunting magical beasts? Perfect," Yuan said. The young woman raised her eyebrows after seeing Yuan's enthusiasm. Normally, one would not react with excitement when they're told to hunt magical beasts, but nervousness instead. The young woman then said with a frown on her face, "Although there are sect elders scattered around this place to make sure there are as few incidents as possible, we cannot guarantee your safety, and there have been plenty of participants who died here." "I see." Yuan nodded, yet his voice did not sound worried at all. The young woman was speechless. However, when she used her spiritual sense to look at Yuan's cultivation base, her eyes widened with shock. Light's novel. "Fifth level spirit warrior?" she exclaimed in a loud voice. Yes, I am at the 5th level spirit warrior. Is there something wrong with that?" Yuan asked her in an innocent voice. No. The young woman did not know how to respond to Yuan's question. Although the examination did not forbid spirit warriors from participating in the examination, they have also never had a participant as powerful as Yuan before, as most people above the spirit apprentice realm would automatically be accepted into the Dragon Essence Temple without needing to pass the examination. Furthermore, most of the magical beasts in this examination were only at the spirit apprentice level, with only a few at the spirit warrior level. There was simply no way someone at the 5th level spirit warrior level would have trouble in this place. After a moment of silence, the young woman cleared her throat before speaking. Anyway, in order to pass this test, you must hunt magical beasts to obtain points, 100 points to be exact. Depending on the level of the magical beast you defeat, you will gain a certain amount of points. For example, magical beasts at the 1st level spirit apprentice level will give you 1 point, and a 3rd level spirit apprentice magical beast will give you 3 points. As for the magical beasts above the spirit apprentice level, they will all give you 25 points. There will be a time limit of 3 days for this exam. Do you have any questions? Yuan nodded before asking, "What about the special jade slip? How do I obtain that here?" "The special jade slip?" Yuan then showed her the red jade slip he obtained from the first test.
"Oh, that."
"It's been so long since someone tried to obtain it that I'd nearly forgotten about it. 1,000 points. If you can obtain 1,000 points, you'll get the special jade slip," said the young woman. 1,000 points. This might take longer than the previous test. Yuan mumbled. Light's novel. After a moment of silence, Yuan asked the sect elder, "Senior, where can I find the most magical beasts at the spirit warrior level?" Over there." The sect elder pointed towards the west. "Thank you," Yuan said to her before running towards the west. Where on earth did such an oddball come from? 5th level spirit warrior. He's already almost at my cultivation level, yet he's taking the examination? The sect elder shook her head after Yuan left. +4 points. A notification appeared after Yuan killed a magical beast at the 4th level spirit apprentice realm in a single hit with the Empyrean Overlord. Heavens, this is such a powerful sword. The spirit sword is nothing compared to this. Yuan looked at the massive sword in his grasp that felt no heavier than a wooden stick with a mesmerizing gaze. Even though the monster was only at the spirit apprentice level, he'd managed to kill it with a casual swing that barely had any force behind it, almost like slicing tofu with a sharp knife. There was simply no resistance from the magical beasts.